right, we are live. It is Friday Night Live. It is 2022, and your obvious scheduled dad joke has to be slid in. We haven't seen y'all in since last year. So it is a good day to have a great conversation. We have Dr. Hunter with us. We're talking medical nexus letters, medical evidence, a little bit of everything, catching up on all that's happened in a while. If you're here live with us, let us know what branch of service you were in, time that you served. And if you're watching the replay, comment as well, and we'll go ahead and reply to you. We're going to have some Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to start kind of thinking of some things in this space that we may be able to answer, and we'll be able to give some good information. But rewinding all that, my name is DP, Disabled Army Veteran, and I have the pleasure of spending the evening with some amazing other veterans. By far, my favorite being Brian, because he's Army, but that's not, that's just me saying it. So we'll kind of go in order here. So over to Amy, who can then introduce Dr. Hunter, who's right next to her. And that took all of 5 seconds for the mic to come out.
What is up? I'm Amy, Air Force veteran. I'm excited to have Dr. Hunter here. I've known her for quite a while. Gosh, how long? Like maybe 9 years?
Oof.
Has it been that long?
That's about right.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yes, it has been.
Yes, so when she was a flight doc here at Peterson in Colorado. I met her, and then she's gone and moved a couple times since then, but we're excited to have her. She's Air Force, so Air Force is the best.
Yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited to have you here. So,
good.
Over to you, Madam.
Okay. Well, oh no, not for me.
I love the possessed eyes.
Yes.
That was for Amy, her little song that she had to drop on us there.
Yes.
Over to you, Dr. Hunter. Feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself, branch of service, and then you went on to do some stuff because you're in Scrubs. So tell us a little bit about that stuff.
I am. So, as Amy alluded to, I was Air Force for a number of years, active duty in Colorado. I was a flight surgeon while I was there. Got to take care of a lot of awesome airmen, primarily air crew, special operations personnel. And then after that, I continued on separately. I continued on in the Air National Guard. In that time, I kind of transitioned from flight surgeon primary care into anesthesia, which is why I'm wearing the scrubs. So I did some additional training in that. And so I moved from the mountain state to the East Coast. And now I'm actually on the West Coast. So enjoying the sunshine and less cold. But yes, currently I practice anesthesia. I just completed 12 years of service combined with the active duty and Air National Guard. So it's been
you're one of the last faces that we see before me and Brian get this done at the doctor. Is what you're saying?
Oh no!
So that's why we don't feel any of that when the doctors are doing all that stuff. Got it.
That is a dramatic video, but
Oh, this was Brian's procedure last week at the VA, by the way. Yeah, he had to get his knee looked at for a disability claim, something about an increase, and they say, hey, just come in here, take this, put this mask on. He went to sleep, and next thing you know, they're banging some stuff out of his knee. I don't know what happened.
Remove that catch and get along.
Yes, I have a lot of magic stuff that I do to keep everybody asleep and safe and pain-free, hopefully.
Awesome. And we'll circle back to a little bit of some of the things you're doing currently as well. And now we'll kind of segue back to it. It's almost like it wasn't even intended. We kind of have the Air Force nestled between the arms of the Army because, it's kind of how that all works. So now over to Brian at the end.
Yes. The book ended. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Brian Lofton, disabled Army vet, alumni of the most awesome branch and the grandfather to the first grandfather service to the Space Force. I mean, not only did we have a child, the Air Force, then we had a grandchild, the Space Force.
So. Still in our prime. Still in our prime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to be sitting next to Dr. Feelgood. I mean, Dr. Hunter. And glad that you do your job well.
Yeah. Me and Brian's experience with doctors and needles and stuff could probably go a little bit something like that.
Oh no.
We have a few folks with us hanging out here live. So let's see. We got Jerry in the house saying howdy do. We got Rick Cook Navy from 77 to 87. Let's see. We got Mark in the house. USMC is joining us as well. Jerry Adams, go Navy, 66 to 79, 11th week of pneumonia. Goodness gracious. 70% and counting. Love you all. Glad you're here. He was kind of on the downward slope, but now he's recovering. So hopefully by week 12, 13, there is no more counting and you are fully recovered. If not, we'll just have to probably send the doctor on some special ops mission and kind of go down there and do something. Let's see. We got Nathan in the house. Yeah. Nate here from Cary, North Carolina, retired 24 Air Force flight engineer, C-141 Bravo, KC-10, C-37, CH-20 Hotel from 92 to 2016. Just a few days,
Wow.
That's awesome. Man.
That's cool.
Wow.
Let's see. Mark did catch the quick flick. We have a counting timer, Dr. Hunter, where we just kind of see how long it takes for Amy to pull out her microphone whenever we go live. So that's where, boop, there it goes. So the mic does make a point to pop in every so often. We got Carol in the house.
Carol.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
Carol is the best. Let's see. We got Glenn is in the house, also Air Force.
Glenn is Air Force. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. We got Bill C's in the house, Army from 16 to 17.
There you go.
I'm pretty sure I messed up that whole name there. SES. We'll go with that. Let's see. That video is what they had to do to remove rods in my leg. Not fun. I remember that, Rick, and I remember the pictures. Not a cute story at all. Fun fact. I probably should have. Now go. Matter of fact, let me rewind and act like that we didn't show that. Hey, Rick, this might be kind of triggering, so be careful because this might remind you what they did it to you. And then we show the video.
That's right.
But yeah, he actually did have rods like that in his leg, so maybe that was where the video came from. Whoops. Let's see, we got Manuel in the house. U.S. Army retired, Ohio, currently at 90%. Glad that you are here.
Ohio.
We did give a shout out to Glenn, but we will say for sure, Air Force 2011 to 2021. So just make sure we have his time up there. Let's see. We got Don Timms from 98 to 2018. Let's see.
Nice.
I want to say, I think I know who this person is. Family and friends. Let's see. Leslie says, "Hey, Dr. Hunter," with a lot of Y's. So, matter of fact, Amy, you read that because I don't want. I'm sound too. If I say that, I'll read it out.
Hey.
See, I say that it's going to be just like a broken truck, like no, it won't sound cool when I read it. Leslie says, Air Force 2013 to 2017. Wesley Warner, U.S. Navy Seabees here, 20 to 2010, Iraq and Afghanistan deployments, currently 100% PTSD. Thank you all for joining. As you guys keep on joining, feel free to share your branch of service where you served. Feel free to invite someone, tag someone to the party here. Let's see. Oh, Bill says I had it right the second time. 2016 to 2018. Sorry for the typo. I'm not trying to take any time from anyone, so get it right. 16 to 18. Awesome. So we have a great conversation. So again, as Amy said, we're going to be talking about Nexus Letters and medical evidence. And, we talk about a lot of things when we do these Friday nights. And really, it's all about helping veterans It's about sharing information. For those that would like more information about Dr. Hunter and some of the things she's doing, I would definitely encourage you all to check out veteransnetwork.club. In the blog section, the very first blog you will see most recently will be to meet Dr. Hunter, preferred provider that we're working with, and a little bit about her, the awesome things she has done, and her background. So it's a brief synopsis, so kind of you can have a little more reading time to see some of the things she's done, her background, and so forth. So that's up right now at veteransnetwork.club in the blog section, so you can again be able to get some more information there. So again, going back to some of the things that we like to do in these shows is talking about a variety of ways to serve our veterans. So we've talked about, obviously, veteran benefits. We've talked about investments. We've talked about crypto. We talked about business and all these variety of different things. And when Amy came up and said, hey, we'd like to put you in contact with Dr. Hunter. She's looking at different ways to serve our veteran community. We began to have conversations and see how best to be able to serve our veterans, because one of the benefits that we do have with our platform is we're able to get in contact and have of relationships with providers and amazing folks. Even today, we had a company that has developed some technology that are working with veterans, which works with like electromagnetic stuff. It's like a collar. It helps you sleep. It helps do different things. And it's amazing when folks reach out saying, hey, we saw what you're doing. We want to talk, and hopefully we can kind of put this in front of other veterans' eyes. So that is one of the biggest benefits that we have here at Veterans Network. So when Dr. Hunter stepped up and said, hey, I'm looking to be able to serve, a few things kind of went off in my head, which is very seldomly do you have the ability as a veteran to make a connection with a medical provider, right, who understands this whole space of disability, this whole space of service to begin with. So when you find a doctor who's a military doctor, that's like 2 checks, very rare. Then you find that that doctor not only was military, but was a military doctor as a flight surgeon. So then add another check. And then Dr. Hunter, who kind of, was not too, detailed with this other part, is in service. She also worked on the med board. So she also has a special skill set that goes above and beyond as far as being able to review documentation for fitness for duty and things like that. So I say all that to say that Dr. Hunter brings a very unique skill set to this space when we're talking about medical nexus letters, when we're talking about medical evidence, because what we have noticed is when it comes to filing a disability claim, you're kind of going against the system by yourself, right? You partner up with organizations, you partner up with a coach, advisor, services, VSO, whatever you choose to do, you have some support. But when it's all said and done, once that documentation is gone and it's over at the VA, it's a documentation shuffle. It doesn't matter what you say, it's what's on paper. And being able to help connect your medical argument to the VA really helps when you have another layer of support on top. So first things first, everything we're talking about today becomes a conversation between 4 veterans and the people who may be watching. This does not constitute in any shape, fashion, or form medical advice, nor does it replace it. So obviously, speak with your provider, look for care that way. This is just a conversation for information purposes, and should you want to proceed or have an individualized conversation, then you can take those steps there. We'll answer questions today, but obviously we're not going to deep dive into specifics of someone's condition out of privacy, respect, and obviously concern for time. But we'll talk about different examples just to be able to kind of give a broad overview, because every person's situation is unique. So that's a little bit of some of the things that really stood out to me in being able to talk with Dr. Hunter. And we've been able to begin having a great relationship between our organization and her organization, and veterans who have been able to be served and be able to get some consultation from her as far as having the records reviewed. So with all that being said and done, when it comes to filing disability claim 101, you don't need to have anything, but you just go to the doctor, right? You go to the VA and you make the argument. That's how it's supposed to be. But it doesn't work that way. Sometimes the VA comes back and says, yeah, but you're missing some things, right? We talk about the Kaluza triangle. We talk about the necessary elements of service, right? Your nexus, your in-service stressor or aggravation, something happened in service. So you have a current diagnosis. And is there a connection between those things? Because the fact of the matter is you got out of service in 95 or 75 or 65 or 85, and then now you're dealing with something. So when it comes to disability, just a frame set, It's not, oh, the military or the VA owes me something because I served. The last time I checked, I'll tell you, I wasn't a flight surgeon, but I did work finance in the military. And I promise you, everyone got paid for their time in service. So the concept of, well, the VA should pay me for my service, they did. You got paid on the 1st and the 15th like clockwork. So that's not the argument here. The argument here is something may have happened in service, right? Whether it was an accident, event, trauma, what have you, psychological, physical, and from that stemmed a medical condition. Said medical condition over time begins to aggravate and get to a place where now it's beyond just a headache, but now it's risen to the level of a disability. So you have to understand some of the basic foundations of this argument, because a medical condition in and of itself does not constitute a disability. Hey, Dr. Hunter, I have a migraine. I have a migraine. Hey, Dr. Hunter, I have some anxiety. I have anxiety. I have a medical condition for which I get care. So I go to the VA, and the VA treats me and gives me medication. That is the end of that conversation. That is the Veterans Health Administration. Now, when my symptoms have risen to a level where it is impairing my social and occupational, right, ability to either have that life, that's a different conversation. Now, my migraines are disabling me, right, socially and occupationally. Now, my PTSD anxiety is disabling me occupationally and socially, and so on and so on. That's a different conversation. So now we go from, yes, I have a diagnosis. Yes, I'm dealing with something. Yes, now these things is getting worse. And post-service, because of what I experienced, the situation, the argument, the accident or the event, what have you, today I'm dealing with this. It's risen to the level of a disability and it's impacting me. That's the argument now that we pick up on. So because of the fact that I left service, let's say in 95, at that time I fell off a truck. I hurt myself, had to go, be put on crutches, what have you, have all the medical records. Fast forward to now. I'm still dealing with issues from then. 200 jumps out of an aircraft, no cartilage, knee pain, etc. Now the argument becomes, this is now risen to the level of a disability. So I go to the VA, and the VA in turn says, well, you don't have a diagnosis, right? Well, screw the VA. The VA is against me. No, it's a system of checks. So I have to make sure that, first of all, I have a diagnosis to make the argument, right? Step one. Then I have to look at the fact is, do my symptoms merit a disability rating? Because I have to articulate that, right? Range of motion, if it's musculoskeletal, or type of this situation you're dealing with, or certain criteria as listed in the CFR. I have that. So I know I have a diagnosis now. I have everything showing this. I'm giving it to the VA. But the VA denies me, because now they're saying, yes, you have a diagnosis, but your symptoms, they don't merit a rating. Or there's no connection to service. Yes, I have migraines. Yes, I went to sick call once, but there's really no connection there. I don't see a nexus. It's hard to explain. Well, I went to the doctor one time in 95, and I should be compensating for that. Lots happened from then to now, right? Again, not impossible arguments, just it becomes harder the longer you've been out of service. So I want to make this clear. It doesn't matter how long you've been out of service. It's about being able to articulate what's happening. Because sometimes what happens is, right, and Dr. Hunter, this is the school of WebMD Google here, right? So please refrain from having too much of a reaction to my example here. But you leave service, let's say, with a bad back condition. Over the years, that back condition begins to aggravate your gait and how you walk. So now your knees are taking an impact because you favor one side. Over time, now that's making worse for your feet. So now some plantar fasciitis shows up. You're, leveraging or favoring your right side, and you walk with a little bit of a limp and whatnot. And over the years, this is what's happening. If the doctor asked me today, hey, what am I dealing with? My right foot is killing me. But the fact is, there's nothing in service about my right foot. My right foot has been aggravated by the pain in my knee and my hip, which makes me go ahead and favor my other side, and that's what's happening. My back condition is related to service. My foot condition came after the fact, but it's been 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So being able to look backwards and say, okay, wait a second, what exactly do we have to work with here? That's part of the reverse engineering of making said argument, right? So fast forward now, with that in mind, it could be any kind of example. Having the ability to have a nexus letter with your medical evidence now kind of helps bridge that argument. Because now what I'm saying is, hey, Dr. Hunter, I've been to all these doctors and They just don't get it. I have no cartilage in my knees. I was airborne. I tried to explain to them blunt force trauma, things like that. And when I go see the doctor, they say, you know what? You have the knees of, someone who got hit by a truck, and your back looks like, you got hit, by another truck after that. But I can't definitively say it was service because you've been out of service for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. So they're saying that it looks like it, but they won't write it. So it doesn't help me to go to the VA. Filed 2 claims, they denied it. So realistically, what can I do, right? Wash my hands and say, hey, I tried, I'm done with this. Now enter the ability to have someone like Dr. Hunter, who not only practices, is a doctor, was in the service, but also treated service members, understands the day in, day out of specific MOSs. You're airborne trooper, you jumped out of planes, well, now that begins to tell me a story. And on top of that, because Dr. Hunter also was part of the medical review board and was able to see that there's one specific skill set. So it's great she's a doctor, it's great she was a veteran, but more so than that, it's the ability that Dr. Hunter has to look at something objectively and write an argument that can tell a complete stranger, in my opinion, right, Mark, right, Tugel, being a airborne trooper for 10 years, fast forward now X years after service, is dealing with these things. Based off what my experience and my knowledge is, I can now make said arguments and so forth. So it's a unique way to make an argument that you don't find with a lot of providers. And I think that's what's really exciting, because it's not just, hey, my doctor's willing to help me. Because there are some doctors that are great at what they do, but they're not going to be able to help you at all, right? Jack diddly squat. And the worst thing is when they say, hey, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and, write something. Just tell me kind of what you want me to say. Like, no, you need someone to be able to back up the argument and be able to add to that. I think we lost Dr. Hunter. She probably had to go do an airborne jump real quick. But she'll pop in here in a second. But I'll say that's the biggest thing I want to just frame set when it comes to, for those who maybe have never seen or are not aware of the details when it comes to filing a disability claim and how the system may look at what you are dealing with. So while Dr. Hunter kind of gets back, Brian, I want to kind of kick it over to you, because if you could just touch a little bit on the written part. So we've seen some of Dr. Hunter's work, and we're going to give the floor to her here in a second when she comes back in. But reviewing some of her work and looking at the legalese of how she's able to actually dissect things, give me a little bit of your thoughts on your side. You're muted.
There we go. So the writing is extremely important. Dr. Hunter's back. Yeah, there we go. In the medical nexus opinion, it does have obviously reference to medical studies, if they're applicable, the medical background of the person that is being evaluated, but a really important component of a nexus letter is the ability to identify associated BVA or U.S. Court of Appeals decisions that might have some precedence or bearing. We've had some that within the last couple of years that have been really important. One major one was the one establishing obesity as an intermediate step, eligible in order to show an aggravation between, one condition and another secondary condition. So the fact that Dr. Hunter has, I think I scared her away again.
Well, I don't know if she realized that she was back on, because she sent me a message. She's reloading it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, but what's really cool is the way Dr. Hunter actually, instead of writing just like a doctor, which obviously she is, she writes a good legal analysis that states why, the court decided in a very similar fashion that in supporting these fact patterns that are established in this veteran's record, his claim record, the way that she just kind of connects the dots, it's very much a legalistic style of writing an analysis or logical flow of information. And she's really good at doing that. Mm-hmm. So really excited about what she's been able to write. and obviously the experience that she has on the med boards, I think probably has a great deal to do with that. So having that experience, yeah, you talk about finding the unicorn.
Yeah, I think so. I think she's going to come back here in a second. I think her internet may have acted up a little bit. So, but yeah, so that's just the foundation there. Austin, to your question, real quickly, is a Nexus letter always required? The answer is no. Not always is a Nexus letter required. For me, it's more of having that additional evidence. There are some cases that are going to be harder to prove than others. So in many a times, you have instances where you don't need a Nexus letter. It just provides additional support, right? It's just another layer of credible evidence that, if done correctly, it's adding that medical opinion plus potentially having some medical supporting evidence to be able to argue it. So you really almost want to kind of serve your claim, to the VA on a silver platter, especially if you've been denied before. That's a big one. So for instances where some folks may have been denied, I would say that it's very important to add more information to better articulate, why the VA is not maybe seeing the argument that you have. So that's to your question there. Welcome to Austin, to hanging out to the show today. Retired Navy, 78 to 98. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. Boop. All right, I think we have Dr. Hunter is back. She switched up here, so let's go ahead and put her. Bloop, there you go. Can you hear us? All right, I think we have Dr. Hunter is back.
Okay.
She switched up here, so let's go ahead and put her. Bloop, there you go. Can you hear us?
All right, I think yes, give me one moment.
Okay, she switched here, so let's go ahead and put her. Bloop, there you go. Can you hear us? There we go.
One moment. Oh, sorry.
Let's see. What other question was?
Yes. One moment.
Okay, no problem.
Here, so let's go ahead and put it. There you go. Can you hear us?
There's a little bit of a feedback, so let's see.
What?
Oh, do you have the show playing? I guess somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, I think.
There you go.
Okay, now.
Did I fix it?
Yep, you're good. Yeah, if you have it playing in the background, that's probably what it is, seeing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So switching over to you, Doc. Oh, so basically we're just kind of queuing up the needed parts to make a claim, and then Brian was kind of chiming in what we talked about as far as the writing piece of itself. So with that being said and done, Dr. Hunter, from your side, minus the WebMD Google quick search that me and Brian are so masterful at, from your point of view, what is one of your I guess your take on what you bring? Well, obviously you bring a lot of awesomeness to the table, but really removing yourself, what are some of the things, I guess, that have made you, before all the technical stuff, passionate about getting involved in helping veterans? We've been at this now for a few months, so you kind of have got, your organization up, and we're supporting and getting that there. Some questions about how to get in contact with Dr. Hunter, we'll share that, but getting in contact with us, we'll share her information also on the blog, which is in there, reaching out to us through veteransnetwork.club. Contact us, reach out to us, and we'll be able to put you in contact with Dr. Hunter as well. But before all the work that we're doing, Dr. Hunter, what really drove you to want to serve and help veterans in this space? Because obviously you saw something lacking that you believe you can bring to the table. So let's start there, and then we'll get a little more technical.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I think my experience with just being an active duty physician, I can definitely from that experience and from, within that experience, I would have to write aeromedical summaries, which are flying waivers, and medical evaluation paper or documents that would go into the full package. And I think, as I started to learn so all of that information that I learned in active duty, as I learned about Veterans Network kind of coming out of an active duty space, it honestly was very transferable as far as when I was active duty. My goal, and I think most of us physicians, were writing for the favor of the member. we wanted to help, try to do our best to keep the members in. Sometimes it would be, they would have such a severe condition that it was kind of out of our hands. We would have to leave it up to the board to make that final decision, or the higher level Air Force to make the final decision. But it was always
so on your side, you did basically recommendations to the board regarding a package.
Correct.
So now Airman, let's say Lacey or Pilot Lacey or what have you, is up for potential medical condition, and it's gone to the board. And obviously, we cringe that once you go to the board, it's over, which is not really the case. It's for the board to decide. But in your case, then your argument, then let's say if you're looking at making the argument for Amy, you were looking at ways to be able to make the argument that she was still fit for duty and should be kept in service, correct?
Sure.
And then obviously the board would be the final deciding authority, but you would take all that information and marry it against regulations, SOPs, laws, or what have you, correct?
Exactly. So just exactly what I was alluding to. Yes. So using the evidence in, medical records, using the evidence in the job, AFSC in the military, which is the code of your job, using that, and then using the regulations, trying to make the connection between, yes, we have a medical condition. However, does that impact their job to the degree that it now renders them no longer fit for, service within their current position? And then after that, or within that, also looking at the regulations and saying, well, based on AFSC, 28 whatnot, this member does meet the requirements if we do X, Y, and Z. So it was very, that was kind of the strategy I think most of us, at least within our clinic, took the position. Obviously, we're looking, first and foremost, it's kind of a combined effort. Yes, we do want to make the right decision for the Air Force. We also want to make the right decision for the member at that time. And so kind of learning more about outside of the military, that this is exactly, this is transferable. It's, just this experience is transferable, and I can continue because, having had that experience, it's definitely something that, I think, especially knowing all the things that military members do and go through that are very unique to us, to have an opportunity to give a veteran a fair shot. It was something I was passionate about, something I'm very interested in, trying to do whatever I can.
Sounds a lot like this. It sounds a lot like this crazy position at the VA. For those who've been through it, you may have heard it. I think they call them raiders, right? Basically, for all intents and purposes, and this is DP talking. This is not an official thing, so don't go out there like DP said it, the med board people. No, what I'm saying is that it sounds a lot like a raider, right? When it's all said and done, a raider will sit there, right, review all the evidence, right, and depending on where they say, it may go to a senior raider, all these different things, but they're making a recommendation for something to be done, and once the recommendation is sent, then obviously they have their internal processes at the VA to either award or deny or what have you, but they're going off of all the information at hand, medical records, reviews, opinions from the examining providers, or examiners rather, or the records that the service member, veteran may have, and then kind of put it all together and make the assessment. With that being said and done, because there are parallels, it's interesting because now in your capacity, you're kind of almost like the consultant coming into the conversation, saying, okay, I'm not at the VA, right? I'm not caring for the veteran, but I'm bringing an opinion that's really kind of in the middle saying, hey, VA, consider this, right? Amy Lacey is dealing with this, that, the third. Here's my argument. Here's my rationale. Here's who I am. My 2 cents. Kind of an unbiased, kind of, supporting, hey, pay attention to this because it may be overlooked. And I think that's what kind of really helps the process when it comes to a very well articulated letter. Walk me through a little bit. Then I want to ask Amy a question here. When you're seeing a veteran's situation, right, and you're going to write the argument, because, again, for the most part, most people understand, okay, it's a nexus letter, you're kind of, connecting one to the other and you're putting your argument. But talk to me about how you come to this, because when you're writing your argument, what's your thought process? Because we've joked around that I think to a degree maybe you went to school at night for law too, because you kind of have, your medical degree, but you have also like a lawyer type of right. Because I'm looking at your write up, I'm like, man, it is amazing. And I'm telling y'all, if y'all get a chance to consult with Dr. Hunter, it's masterful when you can see someone concisely make an argument, very well constructed. It's like when you read something that is well written from an accomplished author. Like in one paragraph, you said, well, probably would have taken me and Brian about 5 pages of a whole bunch of commas. What I had said was, see, because when I fell off the truck and you're just literally like, brrr, and I'm like, holy crap, like that makes perfect sense. Talk to me through that process, because I think people need to know that it's not a copy and paste situation. Yes, Amy, Brian, myself, we can go to Dr. Hunter. We're all going to argue sleep apnea. That's the argument. However, outside of just the usual things that would go into said letter, you're going to make an argument for everyone specific based off our situation. So it's not just, 3 sleep apnea letters, it's all kind of the same. No, you're constructing an argument that one is concise, so it's not just like 10 pages of stuff that nobody will read. Because that's the part I think people don't realize. Yeah. The rater at the VA, you're probably number 10 on that day. These are government employees. They're literally going through their, docket. All right, here we go. Brian Lofton, let's see. 100 pages, and 50 of those pages are dental records, yet he's talking about his back. This will be fun. And nothing coherent, and it's just a train wreck. However, here comes now Lacey's packet, and it's boom, here's the point, here's what I'm dealing with, a Nexus letter on top, and it's like 1 page or 2, boom, boom, argument, rationale, backup, here's who I am. Talk to me through your thought process that you feel is lacking with some Nexus letters, because some people think, hey, my doctor wrote me one, and it's just like, wait a second, understand part of how you construct that. Give us a little glimpse into how you kind of come up with your rationale and attack a veteran's a situation to help them.
Oh, absolutely. So when I get a veteran or a package or a client, in front of me, first thing I go through is kind of an intake process. And I want to hear in their own words, before I look at any documentation, what is going on. And then, I request the medical records that kind of support what the veteran is reporting. And so essentially what I'm trying to do is look at what they're telling me. So I guess this kind of, it kind of segues or feeds into this medical evidence, because medical evidence is broken into objective and subjective information. So the first thing is subjective. So it's what the veteran tells you, or as a doctor, it's what the patient is coming in and saying, hey, I have back pain. Okay, describe your back pain. Where does it hurt? When does it hurt? How long has it been hurting? What have you done with it? What makes it better? What makes it worse? And I guess this kind of is an aside, and we can circle back, but I'll mention it while I'm thinking about it. As a veteran, as a patient, it's important for anyone to describe to the best of their ability in detail what's going on. And also, I don't want to say demand, but encourage your provider to input that into your record, because that, even though it's considered subjective information, it is medical evidence, separate from what you can tell myself or a rater. The fact that it's in your medical record also supports that conversation that you are having with your medical provider. And then that does translate to, this is something that you have consistently reported. This is something that you have had, it may, maybe longstanding, whatnot. So I look at that subjective evidence, and then I pair that with, okay, medical evidence. What is the objective evidence is what comes from the physician, the provider, the physical therapist, the chiropractor, the counselor, like whoever is taking care of the veteran for whatever specified condition that we're looking at. And so I'm pairing those two to see that, yes, we have a connection between what you have reported and what is, in your medical record. And then after looking at that, I understand, as a physician, as someone who has reviewed medical records, that anytime that you're giving me something that's 55,000 pages, my mind already just, I don't care how detailed it is, I'm already tired. And so what my goal is taking that information and making it as concise as I can to allow someone to go through it, quickly and get that information that kind of supports, the veteran patient or whatnot. And additionally, what I do, especially as a physician, I want to say, okay, what does the medical evidence show us? So not only am I using the medical evidence from the veteran and from their provider, then I'm going into literature. I'm doing a deep dive and looking at reputable journals and or anything that's been reported in VA documentation that then supports, yes, veteran, Snuffy with this condition that he reported is being treated in this way by his physician. And according to the medical literature, we do see that, condition X has been found in military members that have had exposure to Y. And then in addition, the VA has documentation that then also further supports his claim. And so it is a little, time consuming, but I think it's worth it to give anyone I take care of a fair chance at, having a fair evaluation of their condition. So that's kind of my thought process. And essentially I'm trying to make it as, concise and complete as I can for whoever is reviewing that information.
All I'll say is trying to recreate that entire process. Literally, it's like this. It's like, and I'm saying that in the sense that, obviously we're in the space, so we understand the elements that you just shared. But for someone to try to take everything you said, explain it to their doctor to hope that they can replicate what you just said, that's pretty much what most doctors would look like. Like, okay, look, what's going on here, right? Because there's a few things here that I have to really emphasize. When it comes to filing a VA disability claim, it is very, very different than a Social Security claim. This is paramount. A doctor spent, I believe, a few days in school, right? They probably incurred a few dollars of debt.
Maybe.
A good chunk of their life has been spent in the pursuit of this designation, this doctor designation. And the minute you cross into the disability side of the house, there's a lot of things that folks may not want to do. So when a doctor who's not military hears a disability, they think Social Security. Because here's the reality. If you were to poll a regular doctor office and say how many veterans are actually patients, it would probably be a small number compared to the majority of patients they care for. So when a doctor hears you come in and say something to the effect of disability, usually it's one of those, nope, don't deal with that stuff, not dealing with it, right? Because the last 10 patients were trying to file disability compensations with the Social Security Administration, some workman's comp thing, and some doctors want no part of that stuff. Like, look, I'm not dealing with that. I care, I treat physicians, but that's just not my lane because of whatever issues they may have had, legal implications, red tape, all the things that we don't know about. That being said and done, they're not going to understand that the Veterans Affairs is a very different beast. This is not Social Security. This is not all of those other things that come with that world. So when you're trying to make the argument, some of the times it's dismissed. That the VA, what they're looking at is if a doctor were to give an opinion, it's just that. It's just an opinion. It's not this whole drawn out thing the way Social Security Administration does what they do. There's a very big difference between disability on the Social Security side and disability on the veteran side. What we're trying to do is give the veteran the better chance to make said argument, but at the end of the day, it all comes back down to the veteran and the VA. So those are some of the hurdles that folks have when trying to even say the word disability to a medical provider, because if they don't understand this is not Social Security, this is the VA, most of the time they're like, okay, I really don't know what that is, but I'm just going to say they're all in the same bucket. And they're not. But there are implications when you try to say they're the same, because they may want to shy away from it. They may have had a past or a situation that came from a previous patient where they're like, no, what, never again. Dealt with this whole thing, had to go report, had to submit more. It was a pain in the ass not doing it. So there's a lot of factors there that I want to just kind of be able to break down for folks who, new to this process. So that medical opinion is key. Now, Dr. Hunt, a question for you. And it's interesting because you said the word airtight yesterday when you're making your argument, right? Tell me a little bit about when you are presenting not only your rationale, but from your perspective, what is the benefit of adding not only your words, but then layering on top of that a BVA decision, right? If there's a precedent set already, and also pulling medical literature. What do those two additional things bring into play? Because again, everything you explained, breaking it out now, it's you're writing your assessment of the situation, but then you also said, I'm bringing in medical literature to support what I'm saying. I am in my right to give an opinion, but I'm going to layer it with now references to medical literature. And if there's a precedent out there that the VA has already made a decision or has opined on something, I'm going to also add that. So talk to me about those two other elements that definitely your primary care is not going to do. They may write you a letter, but they're not going to sit there and pull a BVA case law, and they're not going to pull medical evidence to be able to show causations, correlations, or what have you. So talk to me about the benefit of those additional two things to a Nexus letter in your opinion.
Sure. And so what I think, and especially I think just because my perspective is coming from, the world of, I guess just physician. Like as a physician, we use the term evidence-based medicine. And so this is how we determine what is the proper treatment. We had evidence-based medicine, also expands into disease processes. What do we typically see? What's the symptomology? What is, what would be the physical findings? What would be the lab findings, and et cetera. And so pulling medical literature further kind of supports the findings, if they, are there, of what is in the medical record. And so pulling, at least talking specifically just about medical journal articles, medical literature, it's just that other layer of support saying, yes, what I saw in a veteran's record is consistent with what we do see in these conditions in the medical literature. And so let me reference, this journal article and this journal article to kind of support, because, to be honest, like there's so much information out there that no one can be expert at everything. And so the medical reviewers that are looking at these veterans' records may not be as familiar with a specific condition. And so having that literature to support kind of just streamlines and affords them the ability to kind of, get spun up on, okay, this condition, and, maybe gives them just a point of reference to go to. And so so having that extra information, I think is, helps support both the veteran, but then also, honestly, helps the reviewer too, especially if they're not as familiar with those conditions. And then having additional information that has, if there has been a condition that's already been decided on or looked at from the VA, it also, again, the reviewers aren't, they don't have memory of all of these decisions. And so it also might help in drawing a conclusion based on, the veteran's information, the medical record, what the Nexus letter is saying, what the medical literature is saying, and then what has historically, what has the decision been in the past. And so it's kind of trying to support, whatever conclusion that we're trying, we're hoping to get at the end. Ultimately, no, it's not 100%. No, it's not going to say that it's going to work at, in the favor every time. But the strategy, that I have is, especially if I strongly believe that the veteran does have a claim, is to say, okay, well, this is the information that we have from the medical records, and this is all the other supporting information that, doesn't necessarily, is not necessarily contained in their record, but we've also seen in other people with similar, conditions. So I think that's the benefit of those pieces.
And I'll zoom out very quickly and say hey to a few folks here commenting. Hiram, one of our teammates, said, "Dr. Hunter, please speak English."
Oh no!
But this is good though, because I really wanted to get granular for a second, because this is one of those things where, let's call a spade, right? You can't, one, bullshit a bullshitter, and two, if you don't know your stuff, you don't know your stuff, right? So a good example is what Nathan said, which is, I sincerely appreciate all your experience and knowledge in helping VA claims and our veterans. You speak VA language. It seems to be another language to most of us. And this is a good point here, because to his point, it's like explaining takeoff and landing data to someone who's not in aviation. Now, we've established the micro, sure, right? We've gone into details, and we're going into all that. And again, we have a background. We've helped, thousands of veterans, so we understand to speak, right? We can talk. We brought up, regulations, the CFR, and all these different things. Now, zooming out, right?
Yes.
The reason for doing that is I want folks to really understand that you may not have the opportunity to screen someone. The reality is that most of us say, hey, I'm going to work with so-and-so, but do you know the quality of their work? Have you got a vibe to see if they actually know what they're talking about? Because sometimes you talk to someone and you're like, yeah, this person is completely clueless to this thing. And it's not a dig on them. It's like you said, there's different specialties in medicine, different backgrounds, and not everybody deals with certain things. You're a great family practice doctor, but you're clueless to what I'm talking about because you don't deal with athletes or veterans. It is what it is. Psychology, same thing. You're a child psychologist, family psychologist, relationship counselor, but you're not someone who's dealt with trauma or things to the level that some of our veterans have dealt with. Not a ding on the provider. It's just, what is your specialty, right? So when you look at this, I really just wanted to go that deep, not so much to lose folks. It's just to really showcase, like, hey, this is the inner working. So when you see the final product, it may look a certain way, but just understand that even if you don't know the data of flight for landing or takeoff, at least you understand, hey, that pilot knows their job, right? So, hey, look, I don't understand how Dr. Hunter gets to do what she does, but I get it. You know your stuff. We're good. Can you help me? Right. So zooming back out, we can kind of talk English again. But I really just wanted to be able to highlight some of those points, because for some people it's like, okay, got it. Yep, I was with you, and then you lost me, and you started going into Greek medical literature, and I believe you now because I'm good to this point, right? But that's really a good point for us to kind of talk about things, because again, it's like before you buy a car, right? You walk around, you kick the tire, you look at some things, and you feel like, hey, I read the sticker and saw all the breakdown. So this is what this really is. It's about being able to kind of get a feel, again, not only for me saying, hey, look, this is Dr. Hunter's background and Amy speaking, but also hearing her perspective, how she analyzes and comes to support a veteran, right? Which again, I'll be very clear. Just because, let's say, you refer to Dr. Hunter or choose to consult with her, the fact of the matter is, it is a professional, unbiased, independent opinion. What I mean by that is, Amy, you should talk to Dr. Hunter. She may be able to take a look at your situation. Dr. Hunter may come back and say, you don't have an argument. Right? Because when it's all said and done, let's be clear here. This is for those that know us and for those who are new, hello. I will tell you right now, this is not one of those wink, wink, Dr. Hunter's going to write you a letter. No wink, nothing. If you don't have the ingredients to make an argument, can't help you. There's no fluffing things up. There's no, hey, Dr. Hunter, wink, none of that. It's literally, these are the facts, and based off the facts, an argument can or cannot be made. If things are lacking, we're going to tell you. If you say, hey, DP, I want to file a claim for a thing and blah, blah, blah. All right, what's the situation? Yeah, based on what you're telling me, man, it doesn't look good. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, no. Because the fact is, you want to ensure a few things. You want to make an argument that is, one, ethically correct, medically correct, and legally correct. Because we've always said this, and this will be a quick soapbox moment here, but when it comes to disability claims, there's so many misconceptions, and it only happens with veterans. No one has ever said, Dr. Hunter, in the history of medicine, you know what? This is bullshit. Why does Brian have type 2 diabetes and I don't got that? Why does Amy have debilitating migraines and I don't have that? Said no one ever. So if we would never say that in the medical community, then where do I get the gall to say, well, Brian has 100%, why don't I have 100%? Take the damn number away and consider we're talking symptoms. When Amy has to go take her kids to an event, a school play, or a doctor's appointment, or a family gathering, and that migraine kicks, and you can't even see straight, and you got to cancel for the third time whatever you're doing, trust me, that's not a number, that's life being impaired. That's, I cannot get in my car and drive because I am literally dizzy, I want to throw up, and my brain is going to explode. And it's been going on for 3 days consecutively, and I have no sick leave left to go to work, or I may have been let go. But it's illegal to be let go. Stop it. They'll find ways. You know what, Amy? Look, we're having shortage and stuff and performance, and the fact is, look, you keep banging out, you have no more sick leave, you're always sick, it is what it is. It happens. Let's be realistic here, right? Brian has debilitating PTSD to where, let's say, he can't even go to the mailbox, right? I can go to the mall and go shopping, but Brian can't leave the house because guess what? He's stuck in 67. You don't know what that man has seen. You don't know what that person's endured. You don't know what it feels like to be 27 years old with multiple sclerosis. You don't understand what it's like to deal with something that stops you from living the life that you want to have, right? You don't understand what it's like for a female to have female sexual arousal disorder and have her husband say, you know what, I just don't think it's going to work out, because you are not able to have intimacy with your husband because you have female sexual arousal disorder. It's a thing. It's a thing. You have erectile dysfunction. It affects your psychology. It affects what you're dealing with. So, sometimes we talk about conditions, but we fail to realize that anyone who deals with a real disability would give any fucking thing, I repeat, anything, to get back what they lost and live a life. So when the question is, hey, what are you dealing with? It's not about an ingrown toenail, Billy. It's not about, oh, my foot hurts sometimes. It's I cannot walk. It's I cannot grab things. I have to ask my kids to open up something for me, and I'm supposed to be the man of the house who needs help from everyone. Talk about a mental block. Talk about a woman who cannot do things in the house. I cannot bend over to clean. I can't get the laundry. I cannot do this. I'd love to cook, but I can't stand. Right? This is impairing things. So from that perspective, never would I ever envy someone with Alzheimer's. Never would I ever envy someone with diabetes. Never would I ever envy someone who's dealing with a condition that is debilitating. So when that debilitating condition, that disability is linked to service because you were exposed to Agent Orange, diabetes, because you were exposed to things in the Gulf, IBS, GERD, and so forth, because you fell off a truck and got injured and your spinal cord is damaged and you have rods and things and now alter the way you walk and you can't do things. This argument, right, paired with a Nexus letter helps to make the argument because every single veteran answers every question the same. Brian, how are you doing? Still here. How's the weekend? Same as the last one. Go to the CMP. So what you're dealing with? Oh, No, they don't know. No, they don't know. We have to become unapologetically realistic and true in the fact that you are dealing with issues. Because of the things you did in service, the wear and tear, whatever you're dealing with, today it affects you in this way. And unless you are completely transparent with the fact of saying, Dr. Hunter, I don't know how to explain to the VA that because I was exposed to this trauma or this accident or this situation today, on Christmas mother-loving morning, I can't help a kid even open up a damn present because I cannot feel my hands. I cannot climb a ladder to put up the star on top of the Christmas tree because of my vertigo and I keep falling. Because of the way my knees are set up, I cannot do certain things. So we know what we deal with, but we don't know how to tell that story. Because the person who receives that document doesn't know you. All they see is Brian Lofton, right? So I say that to put in perspective that if you're dealing with something, part of the process of being able to have an advisor, a coach, a VSO, whoever you choose to go to, Veteran Network, whoever else, it's about someone to help and say, look, we have to be able to strategize your conversation. And I don't shy away from this because when someone hears coaching, strategy, whatever, it's like, oh, you're trying to, circumvent the system. No, it's about telling your truth. Dr. Hunter went to school for many, many years, but she also learned how to interview to better position herself and show why she's the best at her craft. If Brian's an engineer, same thing. But as a veteran, it's the opposite. It's about you being able to go to the VA finally and being completely transparent about what affects you. What's going on, Margaret? I cannot get in a place mentally to have relations with my husband. It has strained our relationship. The doctor said female sexual arousal disorder. I cannot get myself in a place of intimacy. It is causing friction. I'm about to get divorced. Things are happening. I am depressed. Here's the reality. I don't want to live anymore. That's the fucking reality. It's more than diagnosis. It's about being able to be realistically honest and brutally real about what's happening. Because if we just go in there and say, well, the doctor said I got FSAD. Oh, the doctor said I have migraines. Doesn't work. So it's about taking the rawness and reality of what you're dealing with and being transparent, but then understanding that all that goes to a rater and you will never talk to them. You'll talk to the examiner at the CMP, but that rater will see what the examiner said. But they will also, in this case, see what Dr. Hunter or other providers like her are saying to help supplement your argument. Because sometimes what the examiner does is they mess things up. I've seen denial letters where they say, you know what, Brian Lofton, your claim for, this menstrual condition, what have you, is false. Well, first of all, Brian is a man, but the rater copy and pasted the wrong rationale, or the examiner sent up the wrong notes. You went for a mental health examination or a lower back examination, and they wrote about your foot. Well, the rater is just going off what's in front of them. But now when you have a Nexus letter also explaining what you're dealing with, it's like, wait a second, one of these two doesn't sound the same. I have a whole record here talking about your lower back, and the examiner's talking about what? So things happen administratively. It is the VA. You do have things that fall through the crack, but to Dr. Hunter's point, these things are made to help put you in a better position to tell your story. Is it required? No, it is not. But if you've been denied and you can't get your argument through, you want to be able to kind of make a good impact and get things done going forward. So I want to frame set that because sometimes we go into this whole, well, how come this person has this and I have that? The fact of the matter is, no 2-3 conditions are the same. If all 4 of us here have migraines, all 4 of us have a different reality of what a migraine is. So to sit here and just dilute things to a rating is very disingenuous and unfair to what someone deals with. So when it comes down to this conversation, we have to be real. Because some folks, hey, sadly, they bullshit. Well, my friend said he went over there and said this at the 3rd. Okay. And I know people who've robbed banks and stolen things. That doesn't make it right for me to go do that thing. Right? Well, I know a guy who got away with murder. So are you going to go out there and do the same thing too? Again, your reality is your reality. So honing in, I really want to stress that if we're making arguments to the VA, we have to make true arguments that then can be supported by the right support system and medical evidence to put you in the best light to finally get rated. And even if they do get it wrong, there's strategies and ways to go back, because sometimes they get it wrong. And then you appeal it, and then they say the first one, they didn't even read anything. He was wrong, awarded, or what have you. Amy, talk to me a little bit about, on your side, working with veterans, what you have found to be a benefit when you start looking at the addition of a medical nexus letter, and obviously what Dr. Hunter or someone like her brings to the table that you've seen, on both sides. Muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I would say, as far as the benefit to getting a nexus letter, is just that statement that it's more likely than not due to aggravated caused by a service related condition or service connected condition. And so a lot of times people are getting denied because they're trying to go in there themselves. And yes, it's like you hit on it earlier. It makes sense to be able to say, I hurt my knee in service. There's documentation to show it. You should connect me. Ideally, they should, but they don't. And so, they can't just connect everybody because they say they have a thing. And so there has to be some sort of medical opinion to say that this is why it's due to or caused by or aggravated by, and this is why it should be service connected. And so not everybody is going to get service connected, and not everybody has enough evidence to get that service connection. So I think it's important, especially as a coach, when you do work with somebody, to truly understand what they have and make sure they understand what they have. Because in order to get that Nexus letter, you do have to have some sort of diagnosis or in-service documentation. You have to have something for, say, Dr. Hunter to be able to say, okay, this is a clear path to write you a Nexus statement. And so it can't be like, well, I'm pretty sure I was seen when I was in the military, but there was this one time I went and I know I told them about my back. Like, there has to be something a little bit more solid. And so of course, when you're talking about primaries and secondaries, that's a whole nother story. But I think, understanding as a person that wants to get a Nexus letter, or, talking to your coach, make sure that you explain to them, what is it that you have? You have migraines. Okay. Do you have a diagnosis for migraines? Yes. Have you been prescribed medicine for your migraine? Yes. Okay. So that's important for Dr. Hunter to look at. She doesn't necessarily need to know that you went to your primary care doctor because you have GERD, if you're already connected for GERD, right? She just needs to know about your migraines. So being able to really know exactly what it is that you're going to get connected for, so that she can write that Nexus, and that will be beneficial for you to get that connection for the migraines, because you're showing you have a diagnosis, you're showing you're treating your symptoms, and you're showing what Dr. Hunter will do is then show how migraines can be secondary to tinnitus. And then that's what she does. And so, you have an idea of what you want to get, connected for. Then us as a coach, we talk with you. Okay, this sounds like a good plan. Let's go to Dr. Hunter. And the great thing about Dr. Hunter is she will review the letter, or review what you have first. And then she's going to let you know, hey, I think you have a good case here, and I think we can go ahead and move forward and write the letter. Or, you know what, you don't have enough. Do you have X, Y, and Z? Or I just don't know that this is enough evidence to get you connected. And so either way, yes, you have a path, or no, you don't. Or maybe you have a path, but you need to go get seen. Or maybe you have a path, but you don't have a true diagnosis. And so, that can get a little sticky too. But I think just being able to understand that process, to know, can Dr. Hunter be of service to you to write a Nexus letter? And so, getting a Nexus letter to get a connection, you're going to have a much better chance of getting that condition connected than you are just trying to tell the VA, hey, I should be connected for GERD because I said so. And so you kind of have to own your claim. You have to say, hey, here's my diagnosis. Here's what I'm doing. You got to put in some work too, because trust me, the VA is not going to go digging for you. They're just not. I mean, it's hard enough to get them to write. Back to your point about Dr. Hunter's letters being very clean and cut and concise, is that, she's able to articulate it in a page, maybe a little bit more. And so the VA, they can appreciate that. And, okay, well, the chances are they're going to read that full page. And so it's, that's very beneficial for you to bring to the VA for your claim, because, hey, they can take a quick look at it and see, okay, this is what it is. This is the connection. And then it's hard to argue when you have medical documentation supporting your diagnosis and supporting the medical literature that says, yes, GERD can be secondary to medications that you take for PTSD. And so that's the benefit, I would say, to present to that CMP examiner. Tell me now, how are you going to refute this? How are you going to prove that this isn't true? Because I have a doctor here that's saying, check out, medical journal such and such, and check out VBA case such and such and such and such, where we've already shown that this has been approved. And so it increases your chances significantly to get approved for your condition that you're trying to get approved for.
Well, let's throw a sidewinder in there. So that's on point. But I don't have that luxury because back in my day, when we served, we didn't go to the doctor. So I don't have not one stinking letter that says I complained about Jack. My service record says I jumped out of an aircraft 300 times, but not once did I say my knee hurt. Because guess what? You suck it up, you drive on, change your socks, take a Motrin, and drink some water. That happens. So now let's take another perspective, right? And I want to throw this to you, Dr. Hunter, but there are veterans that, given the job they have, right? You literally were on a flight line for how many years, and your hearing is daggone near done or gone. But you never complained in service. There are instances where some veterans just don't have anything to show, hey, look, I complained here. But given what you did in service, given your MOS, your specialty, your job, the things you were exposed to, now that you're dealing with certain things, again, I made the example earlier where a doctor could look at you and say, you know what, for a person your age, the deterioration of the cartilage in your knee or your back is literally, the same as someone who played football and got hit, so many times, or someone who's been in a car accident. Have you been hit by a car? No, not really. But I jumped out of some planes. So in a situation like that, Dr. Hunter, throwing over to you, because we do have veterans, right, that may say, you know what, everything you're saying is great, but I can't give you not one medical slip because it was shunned and frowned upon. Unless I was literally, incapacitated, you were not going to show weakness because, especially as an officer, you would appreciate this, and as a senior NCO, this is the reality. I had a platoon to lead, I had a company to lead, I had a battalion to lead, and the last thing I was going to do was go get seen, right? So yeah, all my troops were taken care of. All my airmen were good to go. All my sailors got seen. All my Marines got sent to sick call as we needed. But never ever has Colonel so and so been to sick call to be seen for a thing. Never ever has Sergeant Major so and so went to go get seen for a thing. Right? You suck it up and you just drive on, and you all under your care are cared, but never someone cares for the person caring. Right? So that's one example. But you have others that come from the school of military where, look, you're fine. You got 2 legs and 2 arms. What are you bitching about? Get out of here. So in an instance like that, where you have someone, and we'll just use, airborne trooper because it's an easy example to say. You see, records that show deterioration to a level where pain is excruciating, patella, issues and all these different things. Now, are you able to based off, again, your unique experience as both a doctor, a flight surgeon, a veteran yourself, having treated veterans, military active duty personnel, and also working on med boards and so on, able to make a reverse argument to be able to say, hey, while, let's say, right, Sergeant Snuffy, right, let's say never argued about this based off his in-service record of what his job was and where his conditions at, x-rays, what have you, medical reports, this is now what I am seeing as to what may be happening. Talk to me through that, where someone may not realize or see that sometimes also your service record itself is actually proof to help the argument of what you may be dealing with. So again, I'm Sergeant so-and-so, 300, airborne jumps, 82nd all the way, aerosol, all the great things, all the badges, great, but I can literally not even walk anymore. And this is what I have, and the VA won't award me a thing because I never went to sick call because I served in 87. Talk to me through that rationale.
Sure. And I think that actually circles back to what one of the jobs or one of my responsibilities was as a flight surgeon, is that we actually did on-site visits. So we went to the jobs. We went to see a variety of work environments and evaluated. And so I think, no, I don't know every detail, especially when it comes to some, sister services, but having had that experience, I think it speaks, it helps kind of someone in my position, look at somebody and their medical conditions in relation to what they actually did. And so that is actually part of my intake request is, what did you do in the military? Before we even talk about what your condition was, what did you do in the military? And then, from that, is there any way that that job description relates in some way to what you're reporting today. But absolutely, having that experience, I think it does speak to the uniqueness of having someone who was in the military, who has kind of has a broad understanding of different job requirements, who does kind of understand what it means to, take care of persons that have deployed. It's a very different population of people. It's not, the normal, typical worker in the U.S. And so there's other stressors that you just become aware of and familiar with. And so absolutely, it's a pretty, I don't want to say easy, but it's for I guess for me, it's easy to make that connection from, their job, a member's job, and what their condition is, within reason. And so just understanding, having that background in understanding of variety of jobs and what that means. And then sometimes it's a matter of interviewing. Okay, well, explain a little bit more about what you did in your job. And so if we don't have records dating back to when you were active duty, then we definitely, your AFSC, what do you call it, MSO in the Army? I don't know. It absolutely, it is what it is. On your record as a military member, you have in that DD 214, it tells what you did in the military. And so even if you don't have medical records, we have your military record, and we can use that to support your claim, and link it back to your time in service. So.
No, that's perfect, and that's obviously being able to kind of hear again back to your background, which is one of the first things we stressed on, really helps doing that, which goes back to kind of almost like forensic, recreate the situation, kind of go backwards and make the argument. And again, I think there's such a huge benefit to not only the fact that, hey, you have this background, but really you can also research things, right? So yes, you're not, like all things when it comes to military, schools, courses, or anything, really what you're good at is being able to find information. No one really memorizes anything. It's about being able to data find things, fact find rather, do the research and find, hey, are there other conditions where these arguments seem to be prevalent? And that kind of goes back to your point of finding not only medical literature, but even decisions the VA has made where they're arguing said conditions, because sometimes the VA may make a condition for a specific case that really breaks the mold, and it may not set a precedence per se. It's like, no, in this, service members, veteran situation, this is being awarded, but it doesn't become like a blanket statement for all. And I want to focus on that because I think the benefit of working with someone or making an argument is usually someone would say, well, Dr. Hunter, there's just no way I can argue said thing or claim this because I believe my situation is unique. Most of the time it really isn't, but there are instances where, yep, it really is unique. And I would argue that any argument that can be factually made with the evidence needed deserves the ability to be seen. However, if it's one of these situations where you may be the only person dealing with a thing that has not been seen before, in the moment, what no one ever sees is today we are able to claim somatic symptom disorder, chronic pain, because the VA made a groundbreaking decision years ago in the case of fill in the blank VA, right? And it went all the way to the highest levels of the BVA. That process, though, what no one sees is that, let's say it took Amy 7 years of being denied by the VA, appealing, right, getting before a judge, everything being seen, and the decision being made that in Amy's case, yes, there is a service connection for the argument she is making, and now that has created a new pathway for others to be able to argue the same. For example, Agent Orange was not a thing people were claiming unless the very first veterans coming back began to complain and started to see the data overwhelmingly that there is a presumption now in place, because it's basically a thing where a lot of these veterans exposed to these toxins or just environmental hazards or these different things are suffering from the same things. Now, I have to say, it is imperative, beyond the rating, that these arguments be made, because if not, absent the data, there cannot be made any argument to be able to constructively say, hey, we have an alarming increase in the veteran population of veterans dealing with, let's say, diabetes who came back from Vietnam, or Parkinson's who came back from Vietnam, or veterans who were in the Gulf who have a alarming increase in intestinal issues and respiratory issues, right? But that data has to be captured, right? So it's imperative to be seen and to make that known because it helps to make these arguments. But if you're dealing with something that may not seem like it's the standard thing, I would argue that you still have got to fight the fight and make the argument, because even if the VA denies you, there's a process and mechanism for that. Again, you got denied, Amy. Well, okay, well, we're going to go back for an appeal. Well, you got denied there again. Okay, high-level review did not work. A supplemental claim did not work. We brought in Dr. Hunter. All the medical evidence is there, but we just need someone to objectively look at it. And some of these decisions, sadly, will not be made at the regional level. Some of these decisions have to go to a judge, have to go to the highest levels to be looked at because they may well be groundbreaking. And then, so many years later now, this now is awarded and this becomes now part of the conversation. So, there is no right or wrong when it comes to this, right? Some of the times you have to be able to just make a valid argument, have the evidence to be able to support your argument, and be able to fight the fight. Because when it's all said and done, you as the patient, to Amy's point, you as the veteran, you have to own your process. You have to own your reality. You know what you're dealing with. You know what your reality is. And sometimes it's like you're screaming at someone to pay attention and no one is listening. So having the support, having a medical nexus, having that medical evidence helps to make that argument. But in the case that you're not immediately awarded, I always liken having an advisor, having a coach, having someone in this claim process, the same as having a coach in the regular world. I've always found it interesting that in every aspect of any professional endeavor on both a athletic and non-athletic field, you have a coach or a mentor who does a thing, right? I am a new, fill in the blank, and I'm under the mentorship of so-and-so. Right? New lawyer under mentorship of, partner so-and-so. New doctor under mentorship of senior, director of staff, blah, blah, blah. New person in the NFL now having to be under the, mentorship of so-and-so. I have a coach who works with me on conditioning. I have a coach that works with me on this. I'm a boxer. I have a striking coach. I have a fitness coach. I have a nutrition. All these places have someone to support you. So when the question comes up of, hey, I can do this alone, you can go be a boxer by yourself. But I have never seen not one world champion ever win a title without having a coach. And I say that to say that sometimes it's more than just saying, oh, I have a coach or an advisor or someone I'm working with. It's about having the fact that there's going to be times where you want to throw in the towel. There's going to be times where all the things that you have are just not feeling like they're enough for you to make the argument. And having someone in your corner giving you the rocky, old school get up, you bum, is needed. I get it. You got denied. It sucks. I understand, Jim. It took you 20 years to finally speak your truth. And you went in there open and you told your truth and they punched you right in the mouth and said, denied. And all that you saw was they don't believe me. My symptoms are fake. I am a liar. I knew this would happen. I am done with this process. When in reality, the denial came because of a lack of diagnosis. The denial came because of a lack of a strong nexus connection, because certain pieces were missing. A denial came because of an administrative error. A denial came because of the fact that there's a human element in this. Your truth is your truth. And what I would say for someone who especially has waited a long time to file a claim, it's not about the number anymore. It's about the vindication that, hey, I am not crazy. It's not me who is dealing with this thing, especially towards mental health. Because, again, we all like to sometimes tell our war stories. Hey, let me tell you about my back condition, my knee, all those jumps and all that stuff. But when it comes to mental health, guess what? Nobody ever says, man, my depression, anxiety, man, all that crap I dealt with, I tell you, it has screwed me up, says no one ever, right? But when it comes to a physical thing, it's like, man, look, the way my back is set up, my knee, too many jumps. Too many tuck and rolls. But no one ever says, too much trauma. afraid of connections, make no friends, closed out to the world. That's not what you say, with a smile on your face, because it's not a bragging right. Look at my scars. It's the invisible scars no one talks about. So I say that to say that you need to have the ability to have someone help you in this process at times to be able to help that cause. Because yes, you can go at this alone. No, you don't need a Nexus letter. No, you don't need to work with anybody. And I understand that your friend filed a claim by himself and got himself to somewhere. That's great. Good. But that's not the case for everyone. And collectively here, I can tell you there are thousands of veterans we've worked with. This is not something we've been doing since yesterday. The reason this sounds like we know what we're talking about is because we know what we're talking about. And we have the receipts to show it. And we have the veterans' lives we've helped and shaped to be able to tell their argument, because they needed someone maybe to give them that nudge. So depending on where you're at, here's the reality. Amy is at 90% of what she needs. But now I'm going to help give her that 10% to help her be able to have a full package. Brian, on the other hand, has 20% of what he needs and is going to need more help. So we'll add, let's say, the 80% to help him make that argument. So really, when it comes to this, it's about being able to meet you where you're at and help begin the process. And some of you might be there and just need a little few things. And some of y'all have not even started and need a whole lot of things. So regardless of where you're at, it's about assessing where best the veteran can begin to look at what are the options and how to proceed. And that's part of what, let's say, an advisor does, a coach does, or someone like Dr. Hunter does, to be able to say, okay, where are you with this, right? What's the situation? How many times have you been denied? Have you ever filed? What's your job? Let me get a picture to know where we're at. Because you may have an instance where it's like, you know what? You have a solid claim here. Everything is kind of really there. So I'm really just going to add kind of a cover letter, right, to help put it all together. And then in the coaching advising aspect, we're helping you better articulate and use that. Because the other part here is this. Dr. Hunter is amazing at what she does. And I'm saying that as a person that if in any shape, fashion, or form, y'all have built a rapport and believe that we're true to what we say, then I wouldn't say if it wasn't true, and I wouldn't say if we have not seen her work. So her work speaks for it, but we wanted to be able to showcase her as a person as well. So I can vouch for her caliber of expertise and the work that she produces, which is, again, because of her background, literally bar none. You can't compare to it. That being said and done, it makes no benefit for you to have this literally high precision detonation device, grenade, super bomb, advanced technology thing that we will call a Nexus letter from Dr. Hunter, with all the bells and whistles to be precise. But when you get in front of the examiner and they say, I read Dr. Hunter's letter and very convincing argument, sounds great. Now, Brian, tell me in your words, what's going on? You fumbled. It's not because it's you, right? Like, okay, I got it, read the letter, everything's good. But Brian, talk to me, you plainly. Got it, saw the medical stuff, everything sounds great. You talk to me now, right? Let me know what's going on. Because the reality is you have some folks that just have to be able to explain their truth also. So talk to me about your migraines, Brian. And if Brian turns around and says, what migraines? Why are you here? Why are you here? You know what I'm saying? Because sadly, this is the reality. You have people who are sadly trying to either defraud the government and put false claims. You have someone putting their Vietnam or Korean War grandfather to go file for something, and the reality is they're not really dealing with anything. And sometimes the doctor says, hey, look, everything looks great here, but I want to see it from this person. Like Dr. Hunter, you have to make your own assessment. Like, okay, got it. I read everybody's stuff, but you talk to me, right? Every time you see someone, right? I read your stuff, saw your background. I read the letters from the other doctor, but now that I'm taking you in under my care, I need to do my assessment. I get that Brian made an assessment. I need to do my assessment. So you need to be able to speak your truth. So those are the elements I think are huge when it comes to putting this all together, because sometimes it becomes, but I went to Dr. Hunter or Dr. So-and-so, and I still got denied. I'm like, yeah, because you walked in and when they just plainly asked you the question, that's the part where you were just drawing a blank. Like, you need to have all these things together. It's not just, again, sports analogies are simple, but it's not just, hey, I ate right and I did a thing. Like, no, sometimes you need to have it all together. Yes, you have this coaching here. Yes, you have this here, but you have to be able to pull it all together and present yourself as best you can to the VA when called to do so. And there are instances where the VA may not call you, and we've seen it. We've seen instances where the VA looks at the medical record and say, you know what, there's no reason to even see the doctor. See the patient here. Let's go ahead and, bring him back and award this. So there are some questions that we're going to get to and some comments I do want to highlight here. But really, for those, who may be new to this process or experienced in this process, the approach we take here is really kind of covering a little bit of all angles. So some things are going to be very basic for those that have never filed a claim, because we want to kind of make sure that, we have claims 101. And for those that are very skilled and understand and knowledge in the process, we went a little more micro. So micro, macro, a little bit of zoom in, zoom out to kind of give a holistic picture. But this is a good introduction as to the necessity of this. But again, if you take nothing away from this, understand that a Nexus letter from a medical provider is a independent medical opinion. It is not something that constitutes care. You're not under Dr. Hunter's care. She is not treating you. She's providing a medical opinion based off her expertise. It's no different than when you're trying to buy a house and you find someone to come in and do an assessment. They're not there to fix your house. Their job is to sit there and assess the status of the house and say, okay, based off what I'm seeing, you need these repairs and this is the value and this is my assessment. And that's it. I'm not here to fix. I'm not here to break. I'm just here to give my opinion and off I go. So that's what really this relationship is. And because of that, there is no instance where you are able to say, Dr. Hunter, can I use medical care insurance? No, you cannot. So for the question of how do you pay for something, you're going to consult with Dr. Hunter. And if you're going to consult her services, you look at all the credentials that we just listed. So yes, it's not just, hey, she's sitting here for free doing this. It's, she has her organization, she has her business. It's a consulting fee that we will share. And after you have that as you reach out, which is very negligible in the grand scheme of things. So, do a quick Google search, just, it's kind of what's in the space. That being said and done, you're not going to be able to use medical insurance because, again, you're not being treated by this medical provider. This medical provider is using her credentials to provide an opinion. And that opinion then is going to be used for compensation. So there's a big difference there just for, the constructs of how do you go about this, right? Because, again, you don't need it. But if I want to add this to make my claim that much stronger, then I choose to consult. It is an option. That's what it is. We want to be able to provide options. Not saying you need to do this. Not saying you have to reach out to anyone. It's just saying you don't know what you don't know. But now that you do know, make informed decisions. So let's see here. We have a few points that we shall bring up here. Let's see. So we left off with Hiram, who said, please speak as English. So we did that. We did a little bit of that. So that's good. Let's see. So Mark asked the question. I'll give one, Dr. Hunter, you can kind of piggyback as well from both angles. So I'll kind of come at it from like the coaching side of the house, advisor side of the house, and you come from the medical side of the house. Question being is, do you have to use a doctor that specializes in the area of said disability? On my side of the house, what I would say is it almost breaks out into two different areas. So you have psychology, and then you have, let's say, the medicine side of the house. So, for example, if you're going to claim a disability for a psychological condition, you're going to need a psychologist or psychiatrist to be able to opine on said condition, because that is a completely different range. That said, on the medical side of the house, obviously, you do have the ability to have medical providers who are generalists and can provide an opinion because there's a general overview. Now, that being said and done, on the VA side, the person that is reviewing could be a general provider. They could even be a PA. So it's not necessarily a thing where if you're filing a claim for migraines, you have to have a neurologist provide an opinion. If you do have one, great. But usually in this situation, using migraines, if you were to go to Dr. Hunter, for example, who let's say is not a neurologist, but you have records from your neurologist, she in turn is evaluating the medical evidence from the neurologist, what you have in service, and then based off her experience, training, and background, is able to lay on top of that then an opinion that again is covered in the general space here for non-psychiatric conditions. So I would break those up into those two parts. Some would argue that yes, having a specialist kind of helps a little bit, but the person on the other side may well not be a specialist. So we've seen PAs, we've seen general providers providers, practitioners who can give an opinion. And again, that's where, to Dr. Hunter's point, providing not only her expertise but medical literature becomes a smoking gun now. Because, hey, I get it. I may not be the specialist in this one area, but based off what I do have, I have the ability to opine on this and look at this situation, and then I'm bringing in medical evidence now, which then really solidifies where I'm making my argument for. So I'm not just speaking blindly or ignorantly in the medical capacity. So that would be my assessment. Dr. Hunter, your take.
Mm-hmm. And so I read this, and I'm I guess breaking it out into two arms. And so I'm, when you're saying, do you use the specialized in your area of disability? Well, obviously with care, you do. You would like to go seek care for with someone within that area. So obviously, if you're in the example of migraines, yes, a general family physician, a general practitioner can very well manage migraines. It does help to have a specialist evaluate, like a neurologist. However, when it comes to Nexus Letters, because that is not like a form of medical care. It's kind of like it's a medical or independent medical opinion, and so that's not necessarily it doesn't necessarily warrant only being seen by a specialist. The challenge sometimes as well, kind of as we've been talking here, is that if you go to a specialist, they're great at diagnosing, treating, and whatnot. But then when it comes to writing or documenting to support, your condition, then that might not be an area of their expertise. And so that, I think, it is beneficial to try to find someone who's familiar with, the veterans claim process, Nexus letter writing, independent medical opinion writing, and there, then you'll be able to summarize what's going on with your condition and present you in the best possible light.
I like that. Let's see. So it's kind of like a rapid fire here to catch up, and then we'll take some more questions. So we've answered one of Austin's questions, again, just for those to be able to kind of make sure that we have address points when it comes to the requirement for that. We've pretty much established that's not the case, but definitely it is helpful to have, again, case-by-case scenario. If it's one of those complex situations that needs more support, then that may be a suggestion there for sure. Let's see here. Let's see. We got one of our brothers here actually who popped in. I've seen your comments, Wesley. I appreciate you actually for tuning in. One of our newest subscribers, Navy CB here. We said earlier, 2000 to 2010, Iraq, Afghanistan. He's been tuning in as well and supporting what we're doing. Let's see. Let's see, we have a few questions and we'll kind of circle back here. So Amos, as far as your question, we'll go ahead and put the email of how to reach us as well. So we did provide that as well, so you can have that. We did answer Austin's questions as far as presumptives, medical conditions, and nexuses as well, Nexus letters. So I just want to make sure we're looking at that. We have Hiram in the house. Hello, family. Nexus letters definitely are needed for sleep apnea, to be able to make the argument when we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Bill, we did have the information provided below in the comments as well for Dr. Hunter and how to reach out to her. So that's also in the chat section. I'll bring it up here shortly. We have LB in the house, another one of our brothers, Army 85 to 92. Hello from Wonderful. Hello, guys. Wonderful and very informative subject. I'll watch the rest later. Going to go get a booster shot at my appointment at the VA in Manila, Philippines. So all the way in the Philippines, Dr. Hunter. We have veterans even tuning in. So we are definitely worldwide right now. Not Pitbull, but just us. Let's see. We answered Mark's question as far as the specialist needed. Let's see. This is cool to be watching your lives. Glad to be of service. Appreciate you, Wesley. And glad that you're able to get some value of what we're doing here. Let's see. We did touch on Dr. Hunter speaking medical crazy language, not English. Let's see. Regarding Nexus letters, Mark chimed in. It's like basically putting icing on the cake when it comes to your claim and argument being sent to the VA. Let's see here. And then AMD Redbone. Let's see. Very knowledgeable in VA process. Open your eyes, veterans. It's a share thing. I just read the notes from those next to me. So we have good copywriters. That's what I always say. Let's see. Let's see. Right on for some points we're stating. Hiram says, DP, are you talking to my doctor? I just had a migraine for 3 days straight. Sumatriptan is my close friend. I'm literally in your window just looking in like one of those memes. Let's see. Mark said, Amy, pass over the mic. Apparently there was a period there where there was some preaching going on, so I should have like one of those bits there. Let's see. And this is a great point here.
You should be speaking into your mic.
I know. I should definitely be speaking into my mic. So Nathan said, to DP's point, many of us have guilt about asking for compensation. And really that's, I think, about breaking out that entire point there, right? We're not asking for a thing. We are basically requesting what we deserve, right? We're requesting what is due to us. And in that process, it does not take away from the next person's benefit. So I always say, when it came paydays, no one ever said, well, you know what? Hey, boss, first sergeant, don't pay me because it's, hard time. Just pay the rest of the guys. Don't pay me. Right. Said no one ever. There's enough money in the budget to make sure everybody gets paid on the 1st and the 15th. There's enough money in the system for veterans to claim what they should be claiming. And arguably a lot is left on the table that it's left unclaimed because there is money earmarked for veterans to file their claims. But again, it's just a concept of asking for a thing. No, what we're saying is you've been dealing with something and you have the right to make your argument for what you deserve, period. That's the position that we have to reframe this, because it's not asking, it's saying, no, I did my time in service, but now I'm dealing with things that are hindering me today, and because of that, it's risen to this level, and by the law, I am authorized to be able to make this argument, and I'm going to make it. So it's just reframing that thought process there for sure. Nathan pretty much kind of popped in there. I had that guilt as well. It takes a while, but then you realize that, you serve, so you deserve to be able to make said argument there for sure. To Wesley's point here, I'll say it's Amy's cue cards that she passed over from the desk. You can't see it, but it's like a desk we're sitting at, so she just passed it over. So that's where that came from. Let's see. Nathan, thank you. And I really appreciate you all sharing this and your points, because again, many people may not ask the question. So being able to read it for some, it's like, hey, you are understanding or saying what I'm saying. Even though I've had 4 back surgeries and knee surgeries in the past 5 years, not being able to be the big, strong dad, asking my kids to help carry heavy things and worrying that they might hurt their backs. To my point earlier, when you look at these points, this is now where there's a segue between the connection between the physical and the psychological, right? There are many instances where the physical conditions you're dealing with now begin to exacerbate or make worse your mental health condition. Now you are dealing with depression. Now you are dealing with certain mental health conditions because of the things that you're dealing with medically. So those arguments are arguments that have to be well crafted because of this condition, that in turn now has led to full-blown depression, which is an argument that can be made, but is a secondary argument to your physical condition. So it's not, hey, in service, I didn't say anything about depression. No, because it didn't happen then. The argument here is because of your rated conditions for the other things that limit you, those things in turn are causing a mental health condition. That's the argument. It's a secondary thing. So there's different ways to be able to craft said argument. So thank you, Nathan, for making that point there. Let's see here. Great conversations happening here in the chat. Mark shares, Marines don't go to sick call. They call the corpsman, get some Motrin, and then they get back in formation. And that is the reality that we deal with. Let's see. Exactly. We never told the flight doc we had any issues for fear of being taken off flight status. Dr. Hunter, because we talked about this a little bit, obviously this is literally right down your alley. So your impression, comment on this statement here.
So I saw this a lot, and I do think that there was an era in time that it was kind of like the knee-jerk reaction. Anytime people came to the clinic, it was maybe for conservative reasons they were taken off status. By the time I was practicing, though, it was shifting, but I don't think that information had really been, common knowledge for anyone that was seen in our clinic. But interestingly, it's not. I saw that a lot, and it was usually towards the end of the airmen's time in service that then they would kind of divulge everything that had been happening during the course of their service. And so this was very common. Unfortunately, there's very specific things that absolutely, if you broke a, limb, okay, it might not be safe for you to pilot an aircraft. However, in general, there weren't a whole lot of things that we would pull people off of status for. But I saw this all the time, and I try to convey, especially to people that were, I most closely took care of, that, my job is to make sure that you're safe and that you can safely do your job. I don't want to take away your ability to do your job. And so, but we, had to develop that mutual respect and trust. So it does take time, but that's absolutely true. I did see that.
It's just a few times. A
couple.
We got Dennis is in the house. Army 64 to 88 ATC. We didn't share our challenges when we took our annual flight physical for being disqualified. And again, when someone hears us do these things, or they say, that either we're knowledgeable or we are we literally like peeking into their lives, I really want to focus and say that it's not that we're clairvoyant. It's not that we really have anything that we're smarter than the next person. It is literally the hundreds and thousands of Vietnam veterans that I've spoken to and Korean War veterans. It is literally, I had a Korean War veteran who was rated for PTSD all the way from the Korean War, never actually filed a claim. And literally one of the main pieces that helped the argument for him was he was on the USS, I forget the name, and there was an article about something that had happened, and he was on it when it got bombed, and it was able to show that this, vessel was struck, and his records show he was on said vessel during that time frame, and that literally was like the missing piece to be able to speak to the fact that from that time to now, in his case, he had been suffering with what at that time was shell shock, with at that time had no actual diagnosis, which then, now we understand to be PTSD, but an entire life of dealing with something that was never able to be understood beyond the fact that you were just grumpy uncle so-and-so or, grandpa so-and-so who was a certain way. So that's an extreme example, but really something that speaks to the fact that, this data is what's needed because, one, Dennis, thank you for sharing that. But what's really important here, it's data that helps us talk to others. But hopefully somebody watches this and says, yeah, Dennis, it's the same thing here. And if Dennis could stand up and make the argument and get compensated, then I can stand up and make the argument and be compensated because all veterans are suffering from one thing. It's this thought that it's just me. Like, Dr. Hunter, it's just me. You wouldn't understand. It's like, no, trust me, I would. I could pretty much read your entire life to you right now. What are you dealing with? PTSD? I could paint you a picture exactly of what your day looks like. What are you dealing with? Migraines? I could paint you a picture of it. Why? Because it's literally the same story over and over and over and over again. It's literally veterans who go to work every week, literally just going through the motions, who are a shell of themselves, who share nothing, who literally sit next to everybody else, and when you go to Brian's cubicle, there is not one personal piece of information that says anything he likes. He has nothing up that says anything about his kids. He has no pictures of Father's Day. He has no pictures of anything. He maybe has a little race car and a military emblem for something, but it's pretty much either a messy desk or immaculate desk, but nothing personal that can tell you anything about who Brian is. But when you go to Amy's desk, you have every single letter that her kids have written her for Mother's Day and every single story about what happened. And on Monday morning, you say, hey, Amy, non-veteran Amy, hey, Amy, how was your weekend? Well, let me tell you about this soccer tournament. And for an hour, she regales you with everything that happened. You ask Brian, how was his weekend? Yeah, same shit as usual. But he didn't tell you that he almost ran a guy off the street, got into a fist fight, damn near got arrested, had a whole situation at Walmart parking lot, like all the things that you'd be like, what the heck? What do you mean this happened? Because When it comes to someone who may be dealing with mental health PTSD, that switch of fight or flight is kind of broken. So in the world, what we do is we leave our camouflage, right? Take off the uniform, but psychologically, we never take that off. So you can't hurt me if I give you nothing. Because here's the reality. If you walk by Brian's desk, and for example, I go to Amy's desk and say, Amy, who drew that? Oh, my daughter drew that, blah, blah, blah. How old is she? Oh, she was about 4 years old, blah, blah, blah. Now she's 16. It was the first letter. And brrr. Same thing would never happen in Brian's cubicle, because when I ask, hey, who drew that? Maybe what Brian heard was, that's a stupid drawing. Who drew that? So you want to say something about my kid? I'm going to fucking kill you. I'm going to literally choke you. Because there are a few things that I care about in this world, and the few things I do, I will not allow you into that. So as veterans dealing with mental health conditions, we close off things. We don't want to share. Because guess what you can't do? You can't hurt me if I don't give you anything. So the trauma that I dealt with when I was a 17-year-old kid in fill-in-the-blank combat situation, now I'm 40, 60-year-old individual, closed off to the world, and you can't hurt me. Well, that's a dumb little emblem there. I don't care. I have no emotional attachment to anything around me. There's a potluck going on. I'm sick that day. You cannot get to me because I give you nothing. So when it comes to that, a lot of our veterans deal with that. And those are the realities that we deal with. So when you're looking at therapy or different things like that, being able to take little, even baby steps to say something as simple as, hey, so Brian, tell me something you like. Well, not getting fired, paying the bills so I can survive is not an answer. But maybe, like happened in my life, at some point, it becomes a simple thing. And when I was going through my process, there was one day where someone asked me a question, said, hey, we're going to go to Starbucks. Do you want anything? And I'm like, my answer is simple. One, I don't want anything. And if you're going to harass my soul, then just give me a coffee black. Right? Like literally, like there's nothing there. But the reality is that, fun fact, I love freaking pumpkin spice. It's a true statement. So there's a little 16-year-old valley girl inside of me, apparently, who loves pumpkin spice, everything. But I would never share that. And in therapy many years ago, one of the things like, hey, try to go to work and just let someone in just a little bit. I'm not saying let everybody into your whole inner world, but you can't close off the whole world. So maybe one little thing. And that one little thing was, I'll have, it's October, I'll have a pumpkin spice. You like pumpkin spice? And the whole conversation erupted from there. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, hey, guess what? He likes pumpkin spice too. And the whole conversation came. And for that one instance, it was not just this veteran who works here, who's a very good detailed person who does a thing, but it was a human being who shared an actual point of commonality. And it felt good to share something and begin to have barriers. So I share that to say that may be somebody else's reality. But this is something that we all deal with, where it's like, only I deal with this. Only I'm closed off. Only I don't share. Only I live like this. Not the case. And the hundreds of thousands of veterans we work with have similar stories in different ways, in different manners. And those things are affecting you. Because guess what? Amy now has been promoted 20 times over. We both started the same day. And I'm still on the same position, in the same job, because I just never go past a certain point. That's the reality, right? So these are things our veterans deal with. So when we share these stories, hopefully somebody else can say, yes, I can relate to that. When Dennis shares a story, yes, I can relate to that. I know what it was like to serve between the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and all that came with that. And if Dennis can today say his story and share, well, maybe I have a chance. It's not just for the younger generation. It's for also folks that have served already. So I share that to say thank you for sharing your points, because it's not just us, it's the collective, for hopefully someone being able to see this, to be able to say, I can relate to that. And if he could do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. So thank you, Dennis, for sharing that. I think that is definitely needed. Daryl asked the question, Nexus letter forms are not prevalent and not even then not really understood by many physicians. Where's the best place to go in our nation for physicians who understand how to complete said forms? One of the places is right here, Veterans Network. Part of the process of what we're doing is being able to bridge these connections with other veterans professionals like Dr. Hunter, being able to showcase what she's able to do. We'll have more providers that we'll bring on, but this is part of it, right? Like if you have, again, like I said in the beginning, trust in what we do, then part of that process saying, hey, we have the ability to vet individuals because of our social media presence, because of our work and what we've done, and being able to have this conversation at our level, what it does is it gives me the ability through our organization to meet someone like Dr. Hunter, who in turn is able to say, hey, I know Dr. So-and-so who's also blah, 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 and, he or she is interested in this. Or I know it's a small world, but it's one of those things like, hey, I trust Dr. Hunter, and now she trusts me. When this whole conversation first started with us, it was, how would I kind of get this thing going? I'm like, girl, let me tell you how many ways this can work and how many people can be benefit from what you could do. And now once she's able to believe and trust what we're doing, she in turn can co-sign and vouch for somebody else. And slowly our network grows into those trusted individuals who bring value to the table. So the answer to your question is, being able to have moments like this, which we don't see. And that's why we're doing this, so that veterans can have this, because there are not many, right? So that's some of the services that we want to be able to provide and collate through to give that. So on our website, you will see then sections for our trusted partners that we network with, because that's really what this is about. It's about being able to say, hey, go see Dr. Hunter. She is her own entity. She is unbiased and will give you her opinion, but we trust she's able to provide the service that, we can put our stamp behind. And slowly we build and grow to provide that. So the answer to the question is us. Let's see here. Some of the points here that was brought up for those that didn't see in the comment section, for Dr. Hunter, you'll be able to find her at Dr. Hunter at huntermedicalconsulting.com. Again, the information is here, and as well in our blog section over at veteransnetwork.club, where you can find more information there. As far as that is concerned, let's see. To Renee's question, so a Nexus letter doesn't necessarily have to come from a doctor who is treating me. I'll pass it over to Dr. Hunter. We kind of usually play this, kind of back and forth game here. But no, because again, it's an opinion on top. So it's almost akin to saying, I want to get a second opinion to validate what I'm dealing with, or add that layer of rationale that maybe my primary treating physician, doctor, doesn't have, because they are not able to accurately make that military connection. Dr. Hunter, over to you for the question.
Yes, and to that point, usually, your primary care or specialist, whoever is seeing you, their focus is treatment, and their focus is diagnosis. Their focus is, making sure that they're providing you with the care necessary to take care of your condition, or help you with your condition. Nexus letter is kind of a different language for a lot of people that have either no military background, unfamiliar with the VA, and so to kind of answer that, no, it does not have to come from who is treating you. It's ideally going to come from someone who has experience with, how to take your information, take your medical diagnosis, take your medical records, and pair that with the military service, trying to link that with your military service. And so I think it's, definitely go to your provider, make sure you're getting treatment. Nexus, it's kind of, you can look at these things as two different types of specialties. You're going to your provider for that, whatever specialty that they have to care for you, and then you're going to someone hopefully that has some expertise in the Nexus letter writing world for their special, that specialty. And so, yeah.
Awesome. A question came in, Daryl. I kind of answered it, but I'll bring it up again for those that may have not seen or caught it. So thank you for being here. First time being present. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. What's the company's name and how do we sign up? So again, to be able to reach out and look at some of the services that we have, we would direct you over to veteransnetwork.club. That's where you can find the article here on Dr. Hunter that we have highlighted, but you'll also have the ability to see the different things that we have, who we are, a little bit of our background, and some of the services and resources that we have available. So when you look at the service side of the house, you'll be able to see the different things we have, from veteran support to trading service, investment, technology, and so forth, along with business development and consultation. So really looking at the totality and holistic approach to serving veterans. So in 2022, one of the things that we're really looking at doing really is right here, right? It's championing veterans growth, development, and success. And that really comes in the way of all the things we're talking about. So for someone, it may be looking at what benefits they are entitled to, whether it's a VA claim, whether it's using a VA home loan, whether it's getting benefits for scholastic endeavors, whether it's looking at, anything in that range, or whether it comes down to looking at technology when it comes to investments or being connected to certain providers. We had one of our fellow colleagues who was with us last year, a few weeks ago, talking about investment strategies. So we had Damon here looking at investment, and he's one of the individuals that I personally work with. So again, vetted folks for different areas. Technology that we use for trading services. We talk crypto, we talk NFTs, and even down to business development, right? Being able to say, hey, can I start a business? Can I do a thing? And, to a good degree, that's even evident right here. We can look at, let's say, Amy and her business that she's able to start up, Dr. Hunter and her business being able to help and serve veterans. Those are some of the things that, I like to say I'm grateful that, our organization has been instrumental with in, a small part of just saying, hey, I think this will be a good fit for you to be able to support and serve. And that journey started as a conversation, became a discovery call, and fast forward today, Dr. Hunter is out here firing on all cylinders and supporting veterans, and that's one of the benefits that's out there, and that can happen in many ways. So those are the things that I'm passionate about, that we're passionate about here, because at the end of the day, you'd be surprised the skill set that some veterans can bring to the table. Because when it's all said and done, Dr. Hunter is just a veteran. It's a veteran who basically saw from the outside what we were doing and wanted to roll her sleeves up and provide service and see how she could help. And fast forward now, we have the ability to answer this question. And we're grateful to Amy for pretty much being able to put us in contact with Dr. Hunter, who now we're able to share with all of you all. And this kind of goes down to what our mission is. Again, right, championing veterans' growth, development, and success. There are so many things our veterans can do out there beyond what you understand. Like, well, I'm a doctor, I do this stuff. I'm like, you can do a lot of stuff. Let's have a conversation. And boom, here we are providing this service. Or you have a financial background, boom, we have another service. There's so many things we can do. There's so many things that we have. It's just we don't have the ability to sequence those things or put the infrastructure or tools in place because, what I'll quickly say is that Dr. Hunter has all these skills and her job is to be in her world, to be in her element, right? But sometimes you need to have other things to come in, right? Technology, maybe, systems, software, an operational perspective from a business side of the house when you're looking at entrepreneurship. So looking at how can we best support a veteran, those are the things we want to put in place because, again, my focus is to ensure that if Amy's coming in with a financial background, that she is a SME at what she is. I don't need her to be a SME on technology. Like I told Dr. Hunter, I don't care. You don't have to be a techie person. You don't have to know these systems. Like that stuff is easy. It's the skill you bring that we just can put hopefully some pieces in place to help you to get to where you have to go. And I think for many veterans, all they need is a few pieces, a little bit of, know-how from somebody outside of your lane that can really make a difference to help, whether that be automation, systems, processes, or just seeing, hey, if you can do it, I can do it. So I would say that those are the things that we look at here at Veterans Network. So if you're looking at any of those things, again, considering benefits, considering technology, investment strategies, or business development, those are different things that we're doing. We're adding more and we're growing. But if you head on over to veteransnetwork.club, you will see in our service section how to contact us for the variety of different offerings that we have. So as we serve others, hopefully we hope that you all will look at those services and reach out and make use of those things. Quick shameless plug there for that. Let's see. So yes, Darryl, that should answer your question as far as reaching out, talking to us. So we'll be in contact with you. So ping us, send us a message, and we'll definitely have someone kind of get with you and have a conversation and kind of point you in the right direction as needed. Dennis, for the win, little alley-oop action there. Whoop, yep, that's us.
There you go.
And again, for those that may have not seen the post there, we'll bring it up again. It's Veterans Network, one word, .club, where you can find us there as well. Let's see here. Let's see here. So Wesley, to your question, as far as your review being looked at again, we could set something up. So when it comes to, as far as some tips, when it comes to his review for his condition, so he's been called back in from the VA to be looked at for his PTSD, right? So that happens. Sometimes you're not PNT. Sometimes the VA will call you back in to review. And I'll say that when it comes to mental health, specifically when it comes to PTSD, many veterans have not made that argument. So the argument for the PTSD that was awarded is linked to something that happened in service or after service, whatever the case may be. You're rated for it now. And it may well be the first time you've been rated for a mental health condition. So objectively speaking, medically speaking, there is a probability of recovery, of improvement, that you may well have got better from your last evaluation. So when the VA saw you, let's say 3 or 5 years ago, your symptoms were at the 100 range. Now the VA wants to call you back, take a look at that and say, hey, now that you're rated, you had access to medical care, therapies, so forth, medication. Where are you now? Are you still at the same range, or has things got better, or has things got worse, right? So I really want to say that when it comes to the VA calling you in, like we talked with Dr. Hunter earlier, it can be daunting and scary, but it's not the VA is calling me in to reduce me. It's literally to assess where are you. Because if you're better, then a reduction will come because your symptoms are not there. If you're worse, then those things will be addressed. So really, as far as tips are concerned, it's you made the argument for what got you rated. So you served from when you started to when you got out. You made the argument to the VA, and the VA said your rating is going to be this. Now, effective 2018, you're rated PTSD 100%. The argument now, or the conversation rather, with the VA becomes, how has life been with your mental health from the day you got rated to now? This is not a time to rehash what got you rated. We don't have to go back to what caused the situation. It's literally from the last time we saw you, where are you now? No different than when you see a doctor and you haven't seen in a while, and they're like, so where are you from the last time I seen you, right? Has things got worse? Where are we? What are we dealing with? What's going on? And all the factors that are happening in your life have to be part of that argument, i.e., we've been dealing with a pandemic. We've been dealing with isolation. We've been dealing with a lot of things going on. So all the things that you may be dealing with that may or may have not made your situation worse or better is what you're there to articulate, your symptoms. If things have got worse, you have to articulate that. You have to be able to speak to that. But your argument is not what got you rated. Your argument is basically, are your symptoms, is your condition the same or worse? And if you're saying they're worse, you have to be able to back that up with examples of what that thing may be, right? This is where I was, and now I am here. These are the things that I'm dealing with, right? So that's really what happens at this follow-up here, is they're reviewing where you're at, and it's just kind of a checkup saying, hey, this is where you are. From that conversation, the VA may turn around and say, okay, based on what we've seen, you were rated in 2018, you've done what you've done, here's where you're at, this is what you're dealing with. The determination may be made to just make you permanent total because the likelihood for improvement may have now lessened itself, right? And that's different from other mental health conditions because when you have, let's say, a depression, right, or anxiety or somatic symptom disorder, i.e. my physical condition is causing this depression, anxiety, it's linked to something static. So if I'm dealing with depression because of my inability to walk, because my right leg has a drop foot and I have all these other issues, my condition physically will not improve. So the assessment or argument could be made that my mental health condition dealing with that thing is going to be somewhat connected to that. So you have instances there where it's like, look, my situation physically has not improved, and the result of that psychologically hasn't improved either. And if that's the argument, that's what you would make. Right. So depending on what your situation is, it's basically being able to articulate how things may have got worse or better, and being able to articulate, again, from the last time you were seen. So no rehashing of how you got rated, no rehashing of service, no rehashing of what happened way back when. It's from the day you walked out of that building and got rated to now, what's been happening that they need to look at to be able to help your situation. So I hope that kind of helps you there, Wesley, as far as that's concerned. Brian, Amy, anything you'd add to that point for Wesley?
Yeah, just go in there and be ready to be vulnerable, just like you hopefully were whenever you first received your rating. and went through that CMP exam. Again, we know it's uncomfortable. I call it the most uncomfortable conversation you ever have. But once again, just realize that, it's just one more day, 30 minutes to an hour that you have to spend in there. So be open and what I find is useful, particularly for those of us who have trouble trying to recalling. I always like to take bullet points, write down bullet points of issues that I've been dealing with, and maybe provide a short example so that I have a quick memory prompt. That's just something I like to do. So again, if you have a hard time recalling everything that you've dealt with, let's say last week something significant happened, but 3 weeks further down the road, if you're likely to forget it, why don't you go ahead and taking notes of those things now, so that when it comes time for you to prepare yourself to go into that exam, you'll have something that's contemporaneous to that conversation, something that's current with that conversation, that can, that you don't have to guess at, or that you just don't forget. So take advantage of that.
Dr. Hunter, anything you would add, even though it's the question specifically here, it's to the mental health side, but you do have instances where the VA will call you for any other condition. So regardless of what it is, someone, let's say, is getting called back in to review a condition, whether that be musculoskeletal or internal, what would be some tips that you would have for someone as far as to be able to, go to this examiner, right, and be seen, that you could, offer from your side?
Sure. First and foremost, I always say, be honest, be authentic. You don't want to, because I guess I'm speaking to the other side. I do want, if there are ongoing issues, worsening issues, definitely articulate that. However, providers, examiners can detect if someone is being misleading. And I think that would also be not to the benefit if, you're saying things that are not true, because then it's a hard kind of thing to walk back from. And it's not, not saying that you don't have, certain symptoms, but you want to also not be overly, describing things that might not be all the way true. Because these examiners, you're if you are describing symptoms, saying it's paralyzing, and you're walking into the exam room, and I've seen this too as a provider, walking into the exam room really slow, really labored, taking a long time to get on the examining table. You talk to the examiner, they speak to you, and then at the end you hop off the table and you walk out. It's that's going to be hard to come. So you want to, I think the number one thing is just be honest. But to Brian's point, I think it is important, because you tend to forget at that moment. Sometimes it's like lights, camera, action. What am I, what symptoms do I have? So to Brian's point, I think it's important to, start, jotting down and kind of preparing yourself in that way. But honesty, I think is key. And so you don't want to over discuss symptoms. You don't want to undersell, though, if you are having issues and continued issues or worsening issues.
I actually had a client that did exactly what Dr. Hunter said for his back. And that is exactly what he did. He walked in super careful and was like, oh. And he's like, take off your shoes and roll up your pants. And he was all careful about it. And then the examiner said, okay, you can go ahead and put your shoes on. And he jumped off the table and put on his shoes right away. And then he knew as soon as he did it, he knew he messed up. And so, he clearly got denied. But yeah.
And I will say to that, that's a good point about being completely honest, though, right? Because again, here's the reality. There's something called flare-ups. Hey, can you go and bend over? Yes, I can. But I promise you, if I have to go up a pair of stairs 2 times and do a thing, I would not be able to do that thing. If you want to recreate that, we can, but I'd rather we not have a flare-up situation. But just because I can bend over at the moment does not mean I cannot in a daily situation. Conversely, maybe driving here for the CMP took me an hour, and the fact of being in the car for an hour is killing me. And the reality is, it's, again, simple things you wouldn't even think about, right? So how are you doing today? I am in excruciating pain. It took an hour to get here. I can't be in a car that daggone long, so I'm not in a good place. And I would say that you almost have to control the parts that you can control, or at least be vocal about it. And this is not about, hey, do this, do that. It's about the reality. The reality is, if I do not like to sit with my back to a door, if I walk in and the chair is next to the door, I will politely ask, can I move the chair to another place because I don't feel comfortable there? This is not a place for me to come and just not speak my piece. If under any circumstance, if I went to Amy's house or had lunch with Dr. Hunter or hung out with Brian, I would put my back to a door, then guess what? I don't give a damn about this doctor appointment. Look, can we move this over here because I don't feel comfortable there? It's my reality. It's about being realistic. Right? If you have, let's say, an issue with a prostate condition that makes it to where you have to pee like a racehorse every hour, or guess what? Hey, doc, look, quickly, I got to use the bathroom. I'm not going to hold it for you. Not going to happen. Because, again, it's one of those things where it's not about being, super paranoid. It's about being who you are and what you are. Because if you're claiming that you have inconsistency and you cannot go an hour without peeing, well, guess what? Maybe I'm going to make you wait in a waiting room for a good 45 minutes and then bring you in for an hour examination. And it seems to be in the past 3 hours that you did not have to go not once. But you've been holding it maybe because you don't want to, disturb the process. Right? Like, speak your truth and be honest with what's going on to the fact of, hey, Brian, how are you feeling today? Well, doctor, I don't like sharing my feelings. I don't like being here. I didn't want to file this claim, but here we are. The fact is I'm anxious and I don't like this. But I'm here. I have to have this conversation. And those are some tips that I would give for someone who is going to be seen. And if the conversation is happening in person, I would argue that certain things the doctor would assess. Dr. Hunter could see me in person and assess what my state is psychologically. Am I making eye contact? Am I fidgeting? Am I doing certain things? What is happening psychologically, physiologically with the conversation? But when you're having assessments, because there are CMPs where you may be doing it via remote like this video session with, let's say, a CMP examiner for a mental health condition, what you may not see is that maybe for the past 2 hours, I've been fidgeting this fidget spinner in my hand. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But you don't see it because it's down here. Right? So as I get anxious, maybe I'm sitting here picking this up again and doing it. But so if I sat in front of you, you'd probably see my knee doing this. You'd see me sitting there, rolling my fingers. So I say this to say that if you have an examination or you're being evaluated via, sadly, video, one of the biggest things you must do, right? One of the biggest things you must do is you have got to be that person that is overly animated and overly detailed. And what I mean by that is, typical DP, it's like, hey, what's going on? Okay, I'm going to tell you some stuff, but I'm not going to tell you what's happening. Whereas what I'm saying is you have to be able to say the things that you may not be comfortable, right? How are you feeling today? I'm feeling anxious. Don't really want to do this. Palms are sweaty, but hey, you know what? We're here. So if you see me kind of fidgeting, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, you have got to articulate all the things that you may not even notice because take inventory of what's happening. So in these sessions, what you don't want to do is try to contain yourself and be all like, oh, we're good. Like, dude, breathe, relax. What's going on? Because I don't want to show that maybe I'm nervous. Well, it's an examination. I'm going to be nervous, so I'm going to say it, right? Like, you have to over-communicate things, especially via technology. When you have, let's say, an assessment with the VA, if they say, hey, don't come in person, we'll do one via a video session. You have got to be able to say these things, right? Because they're not able to assess and see all that's happening with you. So one of the challenges of technology is you're only seeing our faces. But you don't see collectively that Amy may be twirling a pencil. You may not see Brian's knee, tapping. So all those little cues, exactly, you don't see them, but they're happening. So I would offer to you all, if we were to have a video session, articulate those small things of, hey, what do I do? And it may be hard for you to self-assess, so do the next best thing. Ask your better half or whoever is around you, what are the things you do when you're nervous? Because you may not know. Because if you know someone, I guarantee you, if I say, Dr. Hunter, so what are some of the nervous tics your husband has? And you'd be like, well, let me tell you 5 of them. Dun, 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 dun. And he'd probably be like, I don't do that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So now in turn, if he, let's say, right, is a veteran, is going to sing, now he can articulate those things because you don't know what you don't know. Because again, those are, little things that slip out, right, when you're dealing with stress, pressure, being scrutinized, and all the things that are happening. So little quick tidbit when it comes to CMP preparation for those that may be out there. Shout out to Dr. Hunter from Dennis, who said, Dr. Hunter wrote me a Nexus letter, and I highly recommend her. She is very intelligent, professional, listens, and gets right to the point. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing that point.
And I have to say something about that letter. That is the first letter I've ever seen that got approved without a CMP. Like as far as the yes. So that was huge.
Yes.
Huge. Yes.
That's a win.
That is a win.
It's a huge win.
So let's go ahead and give Dr. Hunter her due. Daryl may be listening. He says, I do not know who is talking. A great deal of straight common damn sense. I mean, he does not know me. However, he is telling my story. Damn thanks. I thought it was just me. Again, Daryl, first time tuning in, first time person viewing us. Who are you guys? What's going on? Are you over here watching me? What's going on? Are you over there in the mirror taking a look? No, again, this is more validity to the point of us saying, hey, we're not sitting there, just looking at you, whatever the case may be, right? We are literally saying the things that we all deal with, and the more we're able, to share that, the better it is for others. But when it's all said and done, I'm sure that for the most part, somebody probably feels like this might be DP and Company every Friday night. Hey, Dennis, I see you out there. I see you over there fidgeting. Ron is in the house saying, hey, y'all, we got one of our SMEs of all things amazingly technologically fixed. If it's broken, Amy did it, and if it's getting fixed, Ron has fixed it. So
This is true. He can fix anything. If he can fix anything.
Yeah. Wesley says, Legend is a beautiful dog. Thank you. My service dog, Legend, which I, from time to time, we'll see it on our page. So
I was going to say something to Wesley.
Yes.
If he's still listening for your CMP,
Mm-hmm.
to remember how
Whoop, whoop.
to what Brian was saying as far as keeping notes. But if you haven't, make sure you review the 31 mental health symptoms and look at the CFR for the how they rate the mental health. And so I always tell clients kind of what has already been touched on is like, giving examples. So you don't want to go in there and say, I'm hyper vigilant. You want to give examples of, anywhere I go, I'm always looking, or I have to carry my gun with me, or I sleep with my gun under my pillow, or I, have to face the exit, or, if I go to the movies theaters, I'm right next to the end. So you want to give examples. What does gross and inappropriate behavior look like? You don't want to say, I have gross and inappropriate behavior. It's like, I have this road rage that, unprovoked irritability. If somebody cuts me off, I'll follow them to the gas station and punch them in the face, or whatever the case may be. But making sure that you're looking at those symptoms in that 100% where you already are, and that you're able to articulate some examples of what your symptoms are. Yes.
Well, you know what? Look, because because you guys are talking stuff and it makes no sense. So let's pull up this crazy thing called the CFR, because sometimes Dr. Hunter ain't the only one who knows how to research. So Twitter fingers activate, Twitter fingers activate. This is the rating criteria right here. Again, these are things that you have to look at, and this is not, hey, go look and verbatimly read these things. It's, let's be real for a second. If your symptoms are here, I promise you, in our background and how many folks we've worked with, I can tell you many veterans are rated at times, speaking to mental health here, at the 10 or 30 range. Because if you look at the 10 and 30 range, look at the words that are here. You literally have something to the effect of occupational social impairment due to mild symptoms that affect you from time to time. All right. At the 30 range, it says a lot of the things that everyone here has ever said, i.e., intermittent periods of inability to perform occupation activities with symptoms such as, again, we're not grammar Nazis here, but such as means like, doesn't mean exactly, such as, example, right? Depressed mood, anxiety, suspiciousness, panic attacks, sleep issues, memory loss. Sounds a lot like what most veterans would say they're dealing with. And they stop the conversation there. And then they get rated at 30 and wonder why I'm so underrated. Because if you look at the 50, it goes a little bit deeper than those general statements. See, at the 50 now, we're talking about difficulty understanding complex commands, impaired short long-term memory issues, impaired judgment, abstract thinking, disturbances of mood, difficulty establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. The example I gave of Brian at work, not socializing, not doing certain things, the inability to maintain those effective work and social relationships. You've been divorced 5 times, you've been fired 10 times, not in 10 years, just this year alone. And it's only 22 days into the month, right? Like literally, how did you get fired twice already and the year just started? So these are things people deal with. Go to the higher range at the 70, inability to establish, period. Not maintain, establish. You just cannot establish relationships. You're dealing with impaired impulse control, difficulty adapting to stressful situations. Psychologically, guess what? You're someone who in the military were sharp as a knife. You did all these things, and now simple tasks escape you. Like, you're not dumb, you're not, you know what I'm saying, unable. It's just you're dealing with all these things that are pretty much fogging up your ability to perform and do things that you were used to, right? Personal hygiene being one of those things. Not just show up to a C&P looking like a hot mess. It's that back in the day, you couldn't tell Dr. Hunter nothing. She was slaying and killing it and coming in there ready to the nines. And now it's just a baggy pair of sweats and an old hoodie. And it's just literally non-existent care because her psychological state is not in the presence of place of saying, hey, look, I'm about to kill him today. I'm about to slay him. I have pride in how I look. I don't care how I look because I'm in pain. I don't care about what's going on because I'm dealing with all these things. And that has now led to a point where someone looks at you going, God damn, what happened? Back in the day, you had 3 outfits for every day of the week. And now you've been wearing the same outfit for the whole week. What's happening psychologically, right? Not just don't show up a hot mess, or you're at the 100 range, let's say, and you have instances where you have memory loss for close relatives, occupation, your own name. You may have perceived intentions of hurting others or yourself. Whatever the case may be, these are the things you must look at because this is what they're going to be able to compare what you're dealing with in your own words. And I would argue again that these things here, these semicolons, they don't mean and. These are and ors. Yeah. These are and or statements. So what's happening here is basically, hey, does your medical picture look like this? Right? Because we talk about the higher of 2 ratings. And the higher of 2 ratings means, hey, Dr. Hunter, I have all these symptoms at the 50, but I also have symptoms at the 70. And what sometimes veterans do is they don't want to talk about other stuff because they figure, well, I don't have all the things at the higher range. Well, first of all, let's put something in perspective. You, the veteran, be the veteran. Let the rater do the rating and let the doctor do the doctor job. It's not your place to self-diagnose. It's not your place to rule out what you can or cannot say. You speak your truth, and if 2 or 3 symptoms are at the 70, then you speak about those 2 or 3 daggone symptoms. And if the VA determines and says, hey, you know what, based off where you're at, you're spilling over into the 70% range, and they have the ability to rate the higher of the 2. It is a thing. So I really just want to kind of put that in perspective because sometimes what ends up happening is, folks don't look at what they're entitled to, or they start to self-assess and they don't realize that, look, again, and it's not because I'm saying it, I'll scroll right back up, right here, higher 2 evaluations, not a DPism. This is the CFR. Where there's a question as to which of 2 evaluations shall be applied, the higher evaluation will be assigned if the disability picture more nearly approximates the criteria required for that rating. Otherwise, the lower rating will be assigned. Not DP said so, not Dr. So-and-so said so, not the lawyer said so, that's the law. So if you don't speak to those higher symptoms at the next bracket, you're not doing yourself a service by holding back information because you assume because I don't have all these symptoms, I can't speak to this thing. No, you speak your truth, be the veteran, let the raters rate, let the doctor do his doctor job. So that's one of the points that I really just want to stress there when it comes to this, because again, you'd be surprised how many times folks just kind of leave that there. So Shout out to Legend because he was brought up, so there's a little bit of him. He's our chief morale officer, and for those that don't know, he's actually named after Chris Kyle, Navy SEAL. So.
Oop. Audio.
Oh, there you go. Let's see. Oh, we got my brother-in-law here in the house. Shout out to Legend, the real MVP, says my brother-in-law. What up, Ron? By the way, Amy, if Ron hasn't called you, you should definitely get on him. So y'all already talked about the holidays. Ron, it's go time. Let's see. Let's see. Karen, I was a VA hospital nurse assistant, but I'm not a veteran and got diseases. Can you help me with benefit procedures? I would say reach out to us, because if you're not the veteran, but you're exposed to certain things that may take a different path where you're not necessarily, let's say, entitled to file for a disability claim through regular mechanisms, that may kind of fall into more of a workman's comp on the job type of injury situation of sorts if you were exposed to certain things or whatnot. So, Karen, to your point, I would say, shoot us a message over at veteransnetwork.club, contact us, and we'll be able to kind of put you in contact or see how best to support you in your case, to your question that you just asked. Let's see. Wesley says, what up, Ronis? Westland, Michigan. Oh, there you go. So they had the conversation there. Let's see. Nathan says, a huge thank you to the whole panel tonight. What's your schedule for these live broadcasts? So we do them every other week. Because it's just too much awesomeness to have literally every week. As it stands right now, we literally had to almost upgrade our internet service situation. If you guys noticed, I'll give you the hack. Full disclosure, I think we're not, I think we're live, but you guys won't tell nobody, so it's okay. Shh, keep it quiet. The reason Dr. Hunter kept getting kicked off is because we have two magnets here of titans of industry when it comes to awesomeness. Between Brian Lofton and Dr. Hunter, there is so much awesomeness going on that literally the bandwidth didn't work. And every time Dr. Hunter tried to connect, she kept getting booted off because literally I put her right next to Brian. I was supposed to move Dr. Hunter a little bit away because there's just too much energy over there when you have these two, beings of awesomeness and beauty bringing all this, amazing sauce to the conversation.
Brian, I'm just in Brian's shadow. So
there you go, a little high five action there. Thank you, Nathan. There you go. Glenn says, thank you, Dr. Hunter, for coming through.
But Dr. Hector doesn't come every week, though.
No. So we have her here.
Yes.
We'll bring her back as well, obviously. So we try to bring different folks, talk about different things. So we're not just a one-trick pony. We have a few tricks up our sleeves and great people that we know. So let's see. Thank you, Wesley, for sharing your points here. Hiram says, Dr. Hunter, thank you for being here and helping us fellow veterans. Rana said, definitely Amy broke it. So there's that part.
Rana said so rude. Honestly, I thought you were on my side, Ronnie.
So this is a good claim question here. A lot of veterans are saying a higher level review is a waste of time and just go with a supplemental claim and, of course, a new medical evidence and apply as much VA law as possible. Well, that depends. So let's break that down real quick, right? So when you're looking at an appeal, right, the AMA came into play a few years ago. So the Appeals Modernization Act changed the appeals process. So gone are the days of waiting 10 years for a decision. That stuff's gone. Right now, the new appeal system is much more efficient, faster, and there are steps. So when you look at something like a higher level review, there are instances where you should go for supplemental, i.e., you put an inadequate claim to the VA that was missing certain things. You do not want to have a higher level review because all you're doing is saying, hey, someone else check this. If 2 plus 2 is 4, but you submitted 2 plus 1, don't ask for a higher level review because they're also going to tell you it's just 3. You're not at 4, right? So all the ingredients needed for your claim are not there. Now, if all the ingredients for the claim are present, then yes, you can explore a higher level review because it may just be, well, that the person who first saw it missed some things or did not review it, so you want another opinion. If that does not work, then yes, you can go for a supplemental and by definition supplement that claim with additional medical evidence as needed. So it really depends on the situation that the veteran has when it comes to going for a high level review, because you're not necessarily just going to add certain things. If there's certain things that are, let's say, crucial to the claim, i.e. you don't have a diagnosis or you don't have certain key elements to be awarded a claim, it's literally saying, hey, you're not diagnosed. A high-level review is not going to go ahead and fix the fact that you're not diagnosed, right? So just some context there. Brian?
Yeah, I was going to say, because I actually heard this from my local VSO, and I'll just say this as a disclaimer. Obviously, all general statements are false statements, right? All generalities at some point are false. But my experiences and a lot of experiences with veteran service organizations is either they're overwhelmed and so they're not responsive, or their training might not be up to snuff. And talking about training, and the VSO that I have on record, and I have one on record, not for claim support, but because they have access into the VA system, they can see claim status, just like if I were to call the VA. But that VSO also made the same comment that higher level reviews are worthless. They're not worth the time. And to either do a supplemental claim or just go to the BVA. And all I can say to that is hogwash. There's a time and place for a higher level review. I've had a number of successful higher level review claims. Amy has DP. I mean, so to say that a higher level review is a waste of time is to take away an important tool that you have in your tool set. Because quite frankly, if you had all the evidence there and you just need to clean up the arguments because of the way that the VA mishandled the decision, you can't file a supplemental claim anyway because it's not new and relevant evidence. So the higher level review gives you that option to say, all right, I'm not adding any new evidence, but here are the arguments as point to law and point to facts, where the VA made a mistake in their previous decision. So it does take it takes a little work to put together effective arguments. It's worth the time and investment. So yeah, don't discount yourself an opportunity to use an important appeal option. And again, it might be your only real appeal option to start with, because again, BVA, you can skip an HLR and go to the BVA, but I filed a BVA direct review, which is the quickest lane. And as of December 17th, it's been 1 year and no status update from the date other than the fact that they received it. So BVA is always a slow path. So expect year plus. If you want to try to get something that's a little bit more quicker in response, that's again part of the point of the AMA. And offering supplemental claims and higher level reviews. We're seeing those come back in 3, 4, 6 months, give or take, right? So you also have quicker options. So there are lots of things to consider as you're going through and making these decisions.
Awesome. So we're coming to the end here of some questions that came in. So as we start to wrap it up, in usual fashion, we'll have some closing thoughts from everyone. Dr. Hunter, when we kind of give it over to you, we'll let you have some closing thoughts. Any fun facts or tips that you would like to share for those in all situations that may be out there. So I'll give you a second to kind of rummage through that. If there's any last minute alibi questions, we'll do some rapid fires, but hopefully getting through these questions have been able to help. Some questions were answered within the chat, so we appreciate those folks helping in the chat as well, and those that are reaching out. Darryl, I did see your message come through the network, so we'll be in contact with you there. Wesley, thank you for your comments and sharing to the same point that we talked about earlier. He mentions here, after being a combat vet and 18 jobs being let go and so forth, he was able to make the argument, share his truth, and that assisted him in getting his rating to our points. We have Roger. Haven't seen you a little bit, brother. Happy New Year to you. Good seeing you. Hi from Tennessee, Coast Guard veteran who moved from Northern Virginia. Glad to see you here with us today. Let's see here. Dennis says, I had a high level review for my sleep apnea. After review, I got my rating. So again, some points there. Let's see. Rick Cook says, I did a higher review on an effective date, and one, they didn't even call me. So you may have instances where, certain things need to be fixed, and in this case, it was the effective date that needs to be reviewed. They fixed that thing, and literally you have to go chase it because you may not notice that they went ahead and changed that. But if the effective date changed and there's a monetary aspect, you may see a back pay as well. So Thank you for sharing that point there. So we'll go round robin in some closing thoughts. So let us go to Brian for some closing thoughts. Then we'll do me. We'll go to Amy, and we'll close with Dr. Hunter.
Just want to give thanks to Dr. Hunter for being here, blessing us, and loading this side of the screen down with extra awesomeness. That's awesome. But no, just great to be back with everybody. It's our first show of the year, 2022. Got to get used to writing that. So we'll get that done 3 or 6 months down the road. But just thankful to be here with the team and my family here, and thankful to all of those of you out there in the audience. So many of you have been around for quite a long time. Some are newcomers, and we welcome you. We have been helping veterans for years, and we've helped several thousand. And it's I couldn't possibly go back to doing my old consulting stuff in the business world, because there's always a missing purpose. And today, helping other veterans getting the life-changing benefits. I even get a Christmas card from one veteran I helped. I thought that was nice. My wife didn't even send me one, but anyway, no, just kidding. No, it's great to be able to help other veterans, and this is life-changing things. And so excited for what we can accomplish and support through the year, and also the exciting opportunity that you'll have with other services that we offer, whenever you have focus on something other than just benefits. So it's cool. Glad to have you here.
On my side, I'd say definitely we appreciate, obviously, over the many years. If you go back, we've crossed some milestones. I would ask, if you're watching this, definitely click out of the chat, like the video, share the video, leave a comment afterward, because these things help the algorithm on YouTube to see others see it. So give the video a like if you found some value in this. We got to start getting into that language of doing that stuff to help more people. But definitely check out veteransnetwork.club as we're doing new things. We have a lot of exciting things that we're working through. We would ask, hey, join us on this. If you go back, you've seen we were doing it for many years. We've gone from Zoom sessions with a few people to be able to expand our footprint and social media into various areas. So there's many things that we want to do. A lot of things are very aggressive. We can't accomplish it by ourselves. But awareness and being able to help others, I think it's a big, huge part of what we're doing. So I'm grateful to be able to have other veterans kind of joining us in what we're doing. Dr. Hunter being one of the newest additions to our network of amazing veterans that we are in coordination with, in collaboration with, as we support her as she serves veteran and she helps us bring in her skill set. So I really just want to thank everyone. I want to say Happy New Year. As far as this year is concerned, our mission statement basically is what we set out to do. We're here to serve. We're here to help. There may be some challenges along the way, maybe some new things that we may be doing. Some things may change and morph, but really it's part of the journey. So have a little grace with us as we do what we do, because when it's all said and done, we are also veterans. We deal with our own conditions. We have our own mental health things. And that doesn't stop us from doing what we do, but it is challenging at times doing what we do. So I say it to say that like all things, try to have a little grace as we have with others, with us too, because it may look like, hey, we may have things together because what you see us put here before you, but you don't see the things that it takes to get here. You don't see what happens after the fact. So this year, with all things that are happening in the world, I would say really just taking a minute to consider, the different things that we're going through, reaching out to people, just kind of being, a friend, being a human being, and checking on folks, because there's a lot going going on, regardless of what your thought process, affiliation, or beliefs may be. People are dealing with a lot of things, especially our veteran community. And hopefully some of the things that we're doing provides value, provides insight, is able to help a veteran wherever they may be. And that's really my vision for our Veterans Network Champions Club, is being able to meet a veteran where they're at and add the tools and resources that we have. So if we have a skill set, we want to pay it forward and share. So I really want to thank Dr. Hunter for joining us, for going the whole distance and hanging out with us. It was supposed to be a few minutes here on a Friday night, and we have completely stolen her from us, from her family, as she has literally rolled up her sleeves, and she was very well prepared with her scrubs to be down here. So we thank you for hanging with us for the duration, but hopefully you had a good time hanging out. Hopefully those watching found some value from Dr. Hunter. If you have questions when you are done, after seeing this rather, put them in the comment section, and we'll get back to you and provide said questions or pass them along to Dr. Hunter as needed for those after the show. So it's great being here live because we can interact, but if you catch it afterward, we'll still try to get back to you as well in the comments section. So we appreciate it, and we're excited for that. Amy, over to you, and then over to Dr. Hunter.
I would say thank you very much to Dr. Hunter for hanging out with us and giving us her Friday night. And all the good information that she brings and helping us. It's been huge for us. And just remember that the heaviest thing to pick up is a phone. Check on your peoples, especially the strong ones. And again, DP, thank you for holding space. And Brian, it's always fun to hang out with you too. Again, thank you, Dr. Hunter, and look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks, in 2 Fridays. And yeah, so have a good night, everybody. Over to Dr. Hunter.
All right. Hi. Thanks. Thanks to everyone, DP, Amy, Brian, for having me on today. I hopefully was able to convey the benefits of, having someone who's familiar with military speak, veteran speak, the VA speak, to write letters to support any, claim. I think the two pieces, and I guess the one piece, I do want to encourage all of whoever is listening and is thinking about pursuing, a claim, is making just documentation, making sure that as much that you get as much in your medical records as possible, to include what you are reporting, as well as a clear picture of what the plan and the evaluation from your medical provider, because that is honestly the single most important communication tool that you can have for someone like me or someone that is reviewing your records. And so I just remember that you are you and or your spouse or your loved one can be your number one advocate. So in general, whenever it comes to your health, you make sure that whatever you need, that you are advocating for yourself. So thanks to everyone watching. Thanks for inviting me on. And I wish everyone the most awesome and blessed new year.
Awesome. So as we go out in typical fashion, we gotta go ahead and give the people what they want. Brian had an upgrade, so he now gives you a little bit of dancing on that side. So a little bit of that.
Yeah.
We have the little baby dancing with no baby pictures there. A little fun picture here of Amy way back in the day, just because she's there giving you some dance action. So there's that part. You may not know this, but let's see here. Where's Dr. Hunter? I see you over there hiding. You're back there running away. Oh, there you go. Found Dr. Hunter. There it is. So we look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you all, and we will be back soon.